All of the whiskey that we enjoy on the vPub is made from grains, from various types of grains. That's rye, it's wheat, it's corn, it's oats. But most of the time, 90% of the products that we enjoy is made from barley, specifically malted barley. There are some exceptions, of course, but again, 90% plus, 95% plus of the whiskies that we enjoy on the vPub tend to be made from malted barley. There's a very, very specific style, a slightly more traditional, old school style of malting that's done on a malt floor. There was a time that every distillery would have had its own malt floor, but of course, over time, in the pursuit of efficiency and cost saving and things like that, making the best use of space and all these good things, the malt floors disappeared and things moved towards centralised maltings. However, there are still a few malt floors out there. And believe it or not, there are still some whiskies out there that we can buy, track down, and enjoy today that are made exclusively from 100% floor malted barley. And I think, and this is what I'd like to discuss tonight, I think that those that use their own in-house floor maltings have an appreciable difference in flavour. I'm looking forward to it as always. I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Thursday night. Welcome to the vPub. I hope you're all doing really, really well. Please don't think that this is going to be like some kind of deep dive into the science and the biology and the chemistry of different types of malting grains in order to make whiskey. I'm not capable of doing that, and I don't think any of you would expect me to be capable of doing that. What I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about whiskies that can bring different light on the flavor spectrum. And you know, one of the funnest things to discover about whiskey, the more you get into whiskey, is some of the flavors that you start to pick up over time. If you can taste a whiskey and pinpoint it to a certain point in that whiskey's creation, whether it's maturation, whether it's production, or whether it's the raw ingredients, if you can detect flavors and kind of guess some point that where it's from, I think that's part of the fun. And I think it just helps us kind of get to know our whiskey more and more, and we can enjoy it a lot more as well. But I'm going to focus tonight on, yeah, it is a very, very niche part of whiskey, floor malted malts. And I didn't think that there would be the opportunity to do this. The reason being that we all know that there's only one distillery, right, that looks after 100% of its requirements with its own in-house floor maltings, and that is, of course, Springbank, looking after the brands of Longrow, Hazelburn, and Springbank itself, and of course, Kilchoman at Glengyle Distillery too. So that gave us maybe 4 brands, different variations, different expressions, but I didn't want to sit down here and just spend a whole evening talking about Springbank. Maybe we'll do that one day, but not specifically when we want to talk about flavour that maybe comes from floor maltings, because I've always had a wee bit of a suspicion that the reason that Springbank is so loved, the reason it's so different, the reason it's so densely flavoured, and the reason maybe that it's got some of that funk character that we talk about, I've always been suspicious that it's got so much to do potentially with something that makes them unique, and that is that floor malting. However, as soon as, and this is a kind of vPub from a vPub. You might remember Per Caldenby and I did a session on barley about a year ago, late summer last year, and we were talking about all things barley, and there was a segment in that where we talked about floor malting, and we just scratched the surface. We just talked about it a little bit. It made me want to kind of take that and expand it a little bit and talk a little more. But of course, I needed the liquid in order to do that with you, because we're not going to do a breakdown of the chemistry and the process of malting itself. We're going to do it through the enthusiast's perspective. We're going to do it through the liquid, through the whiskies that we can buy and try. After doing a wee bit of digging, I was quite surprised how many whiskies I could turn up that I can guarantee are made from 100% floor malted grain. As I'm putting these together, I think before I've even tasted all of them tonight, I'm already confident that we have really quite different, unique whiskies here with really different, enough flavour, enough difference in flavour to stand out, not just from peers, but from products made and it's in their own distillery, in that same distillery, from maybe centralised malted barley. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to go through some of them you'll know, some of them you'll be expecting me to share with you, but I think I'm going to have a few surprises tonight, some that you might not realise are made in such a way. Anyway, before we get into all of that, I'll raise a wee glass to welcome you all. I hope you're all doing very, very well on this first vPub in June of 2025. Cheers, everyone. Let's do what we always do and hop into the vPub and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. And I can see Brian Cabayas is already in celebrating being a member of the barflies for 17 months. Brian and all the other barflies that join and sign up keep the vPub absolutely ad-free and get access to all those wee channel-themed emojis, the Glencairn glasses and various things. Or let's say a silhouette of a glass that looks a wee bit, it's in homage to Glencairn. I don't want their IP people after me. You stealing our emojis. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing well. How are you all doing? I've scrolled back a wee bit to find Gary Field, and good to see you, saying got some Aquavitae Daffmill in the glass. Good for you, Gary. I hope you're loving it. I hope you're enjoying it. Been a lot of discussion about that recently. People have been sitting on their bottles for a wee while now, and getting into summertime, I think it's putting a lot of people in the mood to get it cracked open and enjoyed, and I think it's a perfect summer sipper. Let me know how you're getting on with it, Gary. Julian is saying, evening, Roy. Evening, Barflies. Looking forward to a great vPub and hearing about your purchases from the wee tune. We'll touch on that a wee bit. Don't get too excited, Julian. I was very, very, what could you say? Parsimonious. I was very careful. I was very, very tight with my money this year. I had to be. It's just, as soon as you start to do festivals and travel, we did Limburg and all, that's costly. And obviously, if you go to Campbelltown for the festival, it's for a week, then it's costly. So I didn't bring back too much, but it will feature tonight. Good to have you in, Julian. Gavs Ramsey's here. Good to see you, buddy. And I only got to see you ever so briefly down in the wee tune, buddy, but I did get to see you there, and I was all the better for it. Good evening, Roy's saying. Nice to welcome you in as always, Gav. Ryan Sutherland is here. Evening and hello, Roy. He's saying good to see you, Ryan. How you doing? Any plans for you to do some floor malted campaigns maybe up there in 8 Doors Distillery? That'd be great to hear. Ben Whiskey with Molly saying, woohoo, live from Campbelltown. Hi, whiskey folk. Hi, Roy. Unbelievable. I've got my dates totally wrong, haven't I? I thought that you were going down this weekend. So you're down there with Lee J, you're down there with Jim, you're down there with one more. I need to remember who you're down there with. Another good guy anyway. Hope you're all going to have a brilliant time, Ben. Let me know all about it. I need to see photos, right? Danny Hebbington is here too. Good to see you, Danny. How you keeping, fella? I hope you're enjoying your time on the mainland. And it's nice to welcome you back into the vPub again. Good to have you, bud. And Justin Wan from Hong Kong is saying good evening, everyone. Haven't been able to make it live recently. Very happy to be here tonight, or very early morning for you, Justin. It's always great to have you. Pedro's in Brazil, and he's saying good evening, Aquavitae and Barflies. Good to have you, Pedro. And Mike Molasses is saying good evening, Aquavitae and Barflies. Still recovering from an illness, but I missed the self-flagellation of the quiz. There is a quiz. There's always a quiz at the end, buddy. It's wonderful to have you here. We're probably an hour and a half, 2 hours away from that, but it'd be nice to torment you with that at the end of the session tonight. Good to have you in, Mike. I hope you're keeping well, bud. Bud Jenkins is saying, hello, Roy. I'm so glad to be able to join the vPub live today. Bud, it's always great to see your face. And there's not many people, actually, that is their avatar, like Pedro. I can see David too is in here tonight. It looks like his own face there. Pedro is, as I say, Bud Jenkins. And Sean Causer have actually got their own faces behind the icon, but I don't mind about that as long as you're here. I don't care if you just use a wee letter, or like Mike and Jimmy Legg just using Springbank iconography. Whiskey Weekend Dram, Harrow, good to see you, buddy. Saying, did I hear you say Kilchoman? Good evening, Roy Aquaviti. That means you might be on a wee Glengyle tonight, buddy. Good to have you. Jimmy Legg is in tonight. Good to have you, Jimmy. And Dudar Court is in saying, good evening, folks, and Roy Aquaviti, another vPub, so another excuse for a dram. Good to have you in, Mike. I hope you're keeping well, buddy. Tell us what's in the glass and whether or not you're loving it. Road to Drama saying, good evening, Barflies. Good evening, Aquaviti. Finally, no early wake up tomorrow for once, so I can stay all the way to the quiz at last. Brilliant to have you in, Alberto. Fantastic. Be nice to have you here into the wee hours of the morning for you in Italy, right? Gary Field is saying, even Roy, did I spy the new Arda Midgie behind you? Why? Actually, you did. That's not product placement or anything. That's because that and along, what else did I buy it with? Oh, the new Holyrood release, the pitch from Holyrood. I went into Good Spirits Company. The pitch is opened, but that's not yet opened. That's why it's sitting over my shoulder behind me. It is the new Midgie. Let's show this off, actually, because it is a barfly, Doodle the Dram Arnie, who made this fantastic character up. And I hope that, I know I've suggested in the past that the Midgie should be different every year, and I think certainly that's going to be the case for the makeup of the Midgie. It's an annual release to celebrate the arrival of Midgie season in Scotland, of course. But it looks like now what we've got is a character behind the Midgie release, and I think it would be nice to see the character in different situations and things each year. But anyway, here we have the Midgie for 2025. It's not going to show that off very well. And I knew what this thing looked like before I saw it in the bottle, but they've got that lovely debossed gloss thing going on here. So it really, really looks quite nice. Hats off to the super, super talented Arnie Doodle the Dram. Fantastic. I don't know how excited he is about it as well. Just brings so much kind of life and connection to the product as well. Rick Johnson is here. Good to see you. Good afternoon from San Francisco, he's saying. Roy and the awesome worldwide barfly community. That always puts a smile on my face. Brilliant to have you here, Rick. I hope you're keeping well, fella, out there on the West Coast. So you're joining us, I guess, 8 hours behind. I hope it's a nice time for you. I hope it works out. Ralph Mete is here. Good to see you, Ralph. Good to welcome you back in again. Good evening from Switzerland, says Ralph. Always brilliant to have you, buddy. It's been a wee while, I think. Jerry Miller is just as it jumps, Jerry. I hope I'm going to be able to catch that for you. If not, Jerry, I will catch you tonight. I need to catch up. There's a lot of things I'm missing. Stephen Wilson's bought me a dram. Thank you very much, Stephen. No comment or anything, but I'll raise a wee glass to say thank you and cheers to your health, Stephen. Thank you for your generosity, buddy. Looks like Stephen's in Canada. And Whiskey Novice, celebrating being a member for 62 months. Cheers from Campbelltown, all you legends. Fantastic, Jim. Wonderful to have you in, buddy. Thanks for your support. It's been a barfly for 62 months. And I know that you're going to have a wonderful time down the road. Fantastic. Like I say, I need to see photos. Scott McIntyre saying, even Aquaviti, finally catching the vPub live for a change. Looking forward to watching with a dram of Balvenie. Nice and on theme as well, Scott. Brilliant stuff. Dave VP has just signed up to join the Barflies as well. Dave, thank you very, very much for your support. Keeping everything ad-free in the Barflies is wonderful. Thank you all for doing that. Means that I'll never, ever need to go to Google to share their ad revenue ever again. And you'll never see ads popping up alongside the content. What keeps the lights on? What keeps everything running? What keeps me in a role for Aquaviti and everything that I create through Dramface, the Only Scotch Whisky Awards, all of these projects, is all the support that I get through Patreon. I should mention it more. I should at least mention it every vPub. I forget a lot of the time, but hopefully you know the drill by now. There's enough regulars around here to know that that's how things work. It means that I get to do and say exactly as I want. It means I'm completely independent, and that's the way I like to run things. Epic Artworks says, Aquaviti says, she's tagging Arnie Doodle the Dram, saying, fantastic, says Hellswood. Helen's only got 2 more vPubs tonight and 1 more before she's living north of the border. Exciting times, Helen. Good to have you and Andy in. Danny Hibbington is saying, I've 1 sitting waiting to be cracked tonight. He's talking about the Midgie. Good stuff. And Highland Hamish up in Inverness is saying, greetings from Inverness. Great wee night in the malt room with Graham Young and family. Tried some of the new Tormore. Excellent. Fantastic. You've spent company with one of the nicest families I've been privileged to meet through my whiskey journey. That was Claudette Graham, and obviously their kids as well. Fantastic, good that you're looking after them as well, Hamish. They'll be in good hands up there in the malt room. Okay, it's jumped to the end. I'll catch a couple more before we get on with things tonight. Danny Hebington is saying, I did catch that, buddy. Falscraft Klaus is saying, midges are the only reason I'm glad to be back from Ireland. Otherwise, I want to be back. Arrived home 2 hours ago. That was quite a tour, though, Klaus. I hope you had a fantastic time, despite the occasional biting insects. Can't beat a spot of UV, so Andy says. Okay, can't beat a spot of spot UV. So Andy says, it's right over my head, Helen. Spot of UV. And Whiskey Veritas is saying greetings from sunny Portugal. Good to have you in, Oliver. So you're over in Portugal on your holidays. There's worse places to be. Love Portugal. Be fantastic. It's been a while since I've been there. Sam is saying, Agravite to have a bottle of the new Midgie, and it's great stuff. We bit of port in the mix this time for the new Midgie. It's brought a really nice, dark, rich colour to things. But they've offset it with some peated and unpeated ex-bourbon cask in there as well, and a nice big chunk of a sherry butt as well. Diddle Dram, Arnie is in tonight. Good to have you, buddy, as alongside Luna Aaron saying hello and good evening, Barflies and dear Roy. Brilliant to have you in, Luna. Planning an imminent trip to Scotland. And Diddle Dram is saying you and all the Barflies are the biggest well of joy. Thank you so much. I hope you stay a while, Arnie. It's wonderful to have you. And it's great to have your energy and your positivity too. On the Midgie label, a bit of UV. Spot of UV. Is there UV on that label as well? And I've got a wee blacklight torch. I wish I'd known that. Ben Demon Hunter saying Slanchiva, Roy. Good to have you in, Ben. And DVDW, I think that's Dan saying, just got my Carnmore Dornock in after having it at a festival a couple of weeks ago. Such a great subtle dram. What do you think of Dornock? Haven't been exposed to it enough yet. I've tried the Distillery collection. I can't remember what Pernod Ricard call their 50cl Distillery only bottles, and I've got a Lady of the Glen Dornock over there as well, but that's got quite an active cask, so it's one that I need to explore a wee bit more. Dan, maybe you can help me there. Ginger Genius is saying hi, Roy, and good evening all the Barflies. Good to have you in, John, and good to have bumped into you ever so briefly again down in Campbelltown a couple of weeks ago. Okay, I've got something in the glass that I was just welcoming everyone in with there. Slightly lower ABV, but as we were getting set up tonight, I was comparing 2 drams back and forth. These are cask samples. So what I was trying to do was scratch around, and I had 4, 5, 6 whiskies already lined up that I could have shared with you tonight to talk about floor maltings. Amongst that lineup, though, there was Hazelburn, Longrow, and Springbank. And of course, I could have gone down the road of a Glengyle Kilchoman as well, and just kind of padded it out with lots of stuff from the same floor maltings. But as time went on and I was getting closer to the vPub, another one popped up. And as I was speaking to people about floor maltings and they're getting their opinions and their take on it and things like that, they were suggesting things to me that they had heard was floor malted. So it meant that the armory, or the amount of whiskies that were available to me tonight to talk about this, was growing and growing, to the point that I'm going to suggest that maybe some point in the future, maybe not a year from now, or maybe even 2 years, but 3, 4 years down the line, we could absolutely do another floor malted vPub and not have any of the same whiskies. That's quite exciting for me as a whiskey enthusiast. Anyway, speaking to Simon Thompson, he put me in touch with this distillery, or reminded me that this distillery was very, very innovative and doing various projects, and he had heard that they were involved in floor malted distillation. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. I'm going to talk about floor malting and just kind of give it a brief kind of overview of what we're actually talking about here, and talk about how different distilleries could go about making product from floor malted barley. Maybe we need to mention that first. We make whiskey from grain, and that grain has to be processed in order to make it fermentable, in order for it to be brewed, in order for it to be distilled, in order for it to make whiskey. Before that grain, specifically tonight, we're talking about barley all night. Before that grain even gets to the point of mashing, cooking, whatever you want to call it, before it's even been milled, it has to go through some pre-processing. And that process is a way to increase the amount of accessible sugars. And we do that by increasing the amount of accessible starches. And we do that by taking the raw grain and malting it. That's what we do. That's when we talk about malting. That's what we do. We take a raw grain and we turn it into a ripe grain or green malt. And that process used to be done at every individual distillery on a malt floor. They would take the grain and they would steep it, and then they would drain it, and then they would steep it, and then they would drain it. And what they're trying to do is trick the grain into thinking that it's time to germinate, that it's springtime. Eventually, it gets to the point, the optimal point of the right amount of water on board, if you like, that it gets spread out on a malt floor and it gets allowed to begin germinating. And this is the process of malting. This is the seed turning from that raw grain into malt. However, that uses up a lot of that starch, that energy, and it generates a lot of heat as the thing starts to sprout. So the malt floor that's laid out anywhere between about 6 inches to maybe a foot and a half, quite deep sometimes. But when that's laid out and starts to germinate and starts to malt, it has to be constantly looked after. It has to be turned. And that's where the manual labor comes in. That's when we talk about the repetitive strain injury of the maltman would have had, called monkey shoulder. And he's throwing or turning the grain all day long to try and malt it. And he would end up with this repetitive strain injury. That's more or less something of the past now, because round about starting post-war, but certainly by the time we get around to the late 60s, almost all of the distilleries in Scotland, gradually, one by one, some of them en masse, are moving quickly over to centralised maltings. These are big plant machineries that are either cone-shaped or drum-shaped, or they're pneumatically driven or piston-driven, or these are just big machines. And through very, very controlled environments and controlled temperature, controlled everything, it can be very, very tightly specified and tightly controlled. So the consistency of the malt that's coming out of centralised maltings is the likes of which has never been seen through all the time that anybody's been malting manually on a malt floor. And that's fantastic. It should make things more efficient. It should make things more reliable. It should make things more efficient. Unfortunately, if the traditionally minded enthusiast, the traditionally minded distiller, the traditionally minded flavor chaser would suggest that human hands can affect flavor significantly. So if you've got a malt floor and it's relying on a human element to turn it over, there's going to be inconsistency there. There's going to be malt that's perfectly ready, malt that's a wee bit over ready, and malt that is not quite ready. And that variation in the mix-up, that's going to bring variation to flavor. Now, there are lots of other things that we can talk about. We could talk about bacterial buildup. We can talk about the amount of time that's involved in sweating before drying. We can talk about all these other things that's involved, but I don't think that you're interested in that. And I don't think we need to, and I don't think I'm particularly best placed to talk about it. What we do need to talk about is that when the liquid is in a bottle and we know it's from a floor-malted source, what's the benefit to us as enthusiasts, as whiskey lovers, as people who like to enjoy this liquid? Well, this distillery, back to this distillery that Simon Thompson reminded me about, and I got in touch with him straight away. My pal Tom works down there, and I said, "Oh, you're doing floor-malted campaigns?" He said, "Yeah, we are. We've been doing it since 2022. We did one in 2023. We tried to do one in 2024, but because we're using local barley in the harvest field, we had to skip that year, but we're back doing it again in 2025 this year. Would you like to try it?" I said, "Well, I'd love to try it." I said, "But I'm actually doing a vPub on it this week." He said, "I'll send you up a sample. You can taste it, see what you think." Now, I'm very familiar with Wireworks. I've been buying Wireworks since the inaugural came out. I've got, I think, an expression of all of their core range products and a couple of specials on the shelf over there. I love this stuff. They're in the Peak District down in Derbyshire, and they are, in my mind, up there with the best of the English malt distilleries today. I don't have the biggest understanding of what's out there, and the more I learn and the more I try, the more I realise that there's so many others. Spirit of Yorkshire, for example. We've been talking about Bimber and things like that for years. We're talking about what used to be known as St George's, now the English Distillery Co. I'm going to talk about another one down in Bristol tonight, Circumstance. There's so much cool stuff going on down in south of the border that it's difficult to keep up. But I was keen to try what White Peak have been doing. So they sent me just these samples. You can see what I've taken out of these two samples already. I've got a floor malted local barley from an ex-bourbon cask, 58.7% ABV here. And I've got floor malted local barley. Both of these are from 2022, by the way, from an STR cask, 57.5% ABV. So we are barely at 3 years old. Not even sure if these have hit 3 years yet, maybe just about 2 or 3 years now. But I have to tell you immediately, and this is not, I am absolutely confident this is not like a psychosomatic thing. This is not because I'm looking for these things. To me, the thing that hit me immediately on both of these was the weight and the body and the fattiness and the oiliness of it all. I think it's more pronounced on the ex-bourbon cask. There's a lot of pneumatic character in there still, a lot of sweetness from that malt. But on this ex-bourbon cask, you've got this lovely, big, thick, rounded, it's hiding its ABV very, very well. Just gorgeous, viscous thing. I can't wait to see how that develops in those bourbon casks. Here on the STR cask, we've definitely got a lot more cask activity going. So the ABV is a degree or two lower, but with extra cask activity, it hides it even more. But again, along with some of those kind of wood spices, those toasted elements, the lovely kind of red fruits that maybe you'll detect in an STR cask, that's coming through with this fantastic body, this thickness, this density. It's amazing, and it's completely not just drinkable, but enjoyably drinkable, even at this very, very young age. There's something, even though this is young and fresh whiskey, there is something dark and old school. There is something grungy, there's something oily, there's something thick and dense about this. And I think if the rest of the whiskies follow that pattern, I think you might hear me speaking in similar themes throughout tonight. The way that we might speak about a lot of things from Springbank, right? Fantastic whiskies, an absolute treat to try them, and wonderful to see how they're going to develop in time. I asked my patrons tonight, earlier today, I asked them, I said, just how many floor malted whiskies do you think I'm going to be able to share with you? And so many of them came back talking about, obviously, Springbank and things like that, but so many of the mentions that came back were things like Balvenie and Highland Park and Benriach and Laphroaig and Bowmore and Kilchoman and things. All of these places in Scotland that we know floor malting exists, but tends to exist to do just a proportion of the whiskey production. Laphroaig, I think, are famously 20%, but more, I think they say 30%, but maybe about 20 to 30% at Bowmore as well, of the malt that they use is in-house malted. And that's more than just a tourist attraction, they say. They need to keep that, even when times are tough, because it directly affects the character of their spirit so much. Just 20 to 30%. That's pretty significant. Keith Jeffries bought me a dram as well. Hey, thank you very much, Keith, you superstar. He's saying, please wish Derby Whisky Club good luck. what's happening at Derby Whisky Club? Is that tonight, Keith? I would, if you're putting a wee club together, if you're putting a tasting together, an event together, whatever it may be, I'll raise this Derbyshire whiskey, and I'll wish you the very best of luck for whatever it is you're doing, Keith. I think it's the first time I've welcomed you in. Cheers, Keith. Nice to have you. Derby Whisky Club. And a huge dram came in from my pal, Rolfie Barfly. Number one, I'll never forget when Sevy and Rob were allowed to make malt angels on the Springbank malting floor a few years ago, otherwise known as the best whiskey day of all time. Do you know what's really funny? I needed a picture of a malt floor for the thumbnail tonight, and I knew I'd taken them over the years. So I asked my Apple search, I went in and searched malting and malt floor and things like that. And of course, I didn't know what I was talking about. But I was able to go to various trips over the years and find pictures. And the amount of barley floor angels that we've made over the years is ridiculous. But it meant that I didn't have very many clean pictures of a malt floor without people lying on the barley and making angels and shapes and things. Rolfie, thank you very much for that very generous dram, buddy. It's brilliant to have you in, as always, and it was wonderful to have you as company for those days in Campbelltown. Cheers to you, Ebhead. Cheers. And Ted Brooks has been very generous, and he has bought 20 Barfly memberships for 20 lucky random barflies that are in joining us tonight. Thank you, Ted, for your generosity. It's wonderful to have your support. I'm sure I've welcomed you before, buddy, but it's nice to have you in. Ian Williamson is saying a lot of love from me for White Peak too. Lots of interesting stuff and a lovely little distillery, localish to me too. Well, Ian, I've been invited down multiple times. I've threatened to go down multiple times more, and I just need to get my act together and go down there. Maybe this year. Sooner the better. Desperate to get down to White Peak and see what they're doing. Desperate to get down and visit quite a few English distilleries, if I'm honest. And my pal from California, Aaron's in San Francisco. He's in tonight, and he's bought us. He's in this afternoon for him, and he's bought me a generous dram too. He's saying, "Cheers." Thank you very much, Aaron, buddy. I know you're coming back to Scotland soon, and I can't wait to raise another wee glass with you. But in the meantime, thank you for your support and your generosity, buddy. Cheers. How's AJ doing? Nice to have you in, Aaron. Aye. So, almost all of my patrons came back with those responses, and they all talked about the one that pops into our head first and foremost. You might remember that I went to the Springbank School back in 2023 and spent a week doing the school with my friend Bill. A wonderful time. A great bunch of folk that we did it with that week as well. But what's always going to stick in my memory about that week working at Springbank is that half of the time there felt like, at least half of the time there, you were hands-on doing something with that raw grain, that malt. Or let's say taking that raw grain and steeping it and then spreading it out on the malt floor and turning it. And then at the end of the week, getting it into the kiln and drying it and spreading it out in the kiln and doing all of these things. How much of the week was spent with grain was quite surprising. And that's when you realise that that's the only place really in Scotland that you could do that, because they need 100%, virtually 100% of what they do. I think there is some bought in heavily peated malt for some of the Kilchoman output for the heavily peated runs. But other than that, 100% of what they're making down there, they do in-house. So you can understand that malt is a big part of what they do. We always think about Springbank when we talk about floor maltings. And any tour at Springbank, you get to walk through those maltings, those malt floors, and you get to see them spread out. Gorgeous, neat piles, well, up until the tourists get hold of them, that is, and try dragging things and turning things and making a mess of the nice, neat piece, as they call it, that the maltmen have put down. I loved that experience. I loved getting to understand just how critical looking after the grain was to the product. Anyway, some of you have been asking, some of you have been sending direct messages to say, Roy, last year you did a Campbelltown Whiskies vPub when you came back from Campbelltown. I thought you'd be doing it this year. It was never scheduled, honestly. Sorry about the tissue noise. It was never scheduled this year. And I didn't really have it in the plans, regardless of what I purchased when I was down there. And I think the reason I did it last year is because I just wanted to share the Malts Festival with you and share some of the spoils of it and some of the whiskies that I picked up. But I picked up a couple of whiskies this year. I picked up a Glen Scotia or two. I picked up this, and I picked up a bottle your own, or sorry, one of the Demijohn Springbanks, and also managed to snag a cage bottle as well. And I'll find ways to share those with you in future. Can I just say hats off to Springbank for putting a lug on their wax seal, so it's easy to get into these bottles. Let me tell you what I'm going to uncork and share with you tonight. This will be a first for me. This is a open day, May 2025, the Campbelltown Malts Festival open day for Springbank, which is a Thursday. And this is a Springbank 10-year-old. I didn't buy the hazel burn and I didn't buy the long row. I managed to, whereas last year I went crazy, this year I was just a little bit more careful. This was easy. This was a no-brainer to buy. Yes, it's only a 35 cl bottle to make it go round. I think there's 2,000 bottles of these out there, absolutely. So the alternative to that is it would have been 1,000 full bottles, which would have evaporated, right? Been very difficult for people to get a hold of it. So this spreads much further and it's available for longer to more people. And I think it's the right thing to do. If you're going to celebrate a special day or an event and you're going to try and get it into as many hands as possible, then it makes sense to put it in a smaller bottle. I've made peace with these small bottles. I quite like them now. And listen, if it's Springbank, you're going to be guaranteed something tasty. The fact that it's £35, so that's the equivalent of £70 for a full bottle, for a festival release, come on. There's nothing to argue about there. So it was easy for me to just go ahead and pick this up. And I was able to buy a backup as well. So if I love this, I've got a backup bottle there. I've got something that I can gift to somebody. And if I don't love it, I've still got a pretty decent Springbank, I'm sure, and for the order of £35. Let's hope this opens okay. And we can guarantee, we know for sure that this wee Springbank, regardless of whether it's a festival release, regardless of what age statement's on there, regardless of what kind of cask it's from, incidentally, this is from bourbon and recharred sherry casks. So it's a bit of a vatting, a bit of a mix that's going on here. Doesn't matter what shape it comes in. We know because it's Springbank that it's going to be from their in-house floor maltings. Yella Hemstra is in. Yella or Shella, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. You've probably phonetically spelt it for me in the past. I don't know if I ever picked that up. But he's bought my wee dram to say thanks for the evangelism, Roy. Learning every week. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to have you in here. If you type it phonetically tonight, I'm going to try and pick it up. And if I don't pick it up in the moment, I'll try and pick up on the replay. Let's go with Hjella. Is it Hjella? Would that be right? Hemstra, I feel like maybe Dutch. Sorry, I know I'm offending you right and left. Thank you very much for your nice words. Thank you for your support and thank you for the dram. Cheers, buddy. Instantly, Springbank funk on the nose. Super flavorful, super dense. And I'm speaking about something that we know instinctively and we know and smell and can recognize that's something that's from the spirit. It's nothing to do with a cask that it's been from. This is about Springbank. Bit more kind of I don't know why I was expecting a vanilla blast there. I was expecting maybe on the nose, I was expecting a very kind of Springbank 10-year-old type profile format, but there's a little bit more of a funky side to this, a little bit more of a kind of honeycomb, a little bit more of a burnt cinder toffee note, a little bit more richness, a bit more depth, a little darker, a little more moody and broody, a bit thicker. The Springbank 10 can often be wonderfully bright and tropical. There's a little bit of that in this. quite a thick, kind of custardy biscuit, custard cream type note. There is a creaminess. Oh, second sip's even better. Bags of fruit. Bags of fruit now. Orchard. Sweet orchard fruit. Lovely spice, lovely warmth. What's the ABV here? 57.9. No way. I think you'd sip this knowing it's 10 years old. You would taste it like this and you would be in the low 50s. Really hiding its alcohol strength very, very well. Wonder if this is a vatting, that they've maybe vatted it with something a bit older and something at 10 years old. Bourbon and re-charred sherry casks. So that's when they've taken ex-sherry casks and they've stripped it back, they've removed the old char, they've stripped it back to wood again and re-charred it from scratch again. It's common practice. Some of the nicest whiskies, if you might remember, a re-char Kilchoman from a few years back was a fantastic liquid. Quite an interesting take here. And it almost returns it back to something that's closer to something that's not, it has been filled before, it's been filled with sherry and it's been filled with whiskey probably multiple times, but when they take it back, it's returning it to something that's, it's not quite new wood, but reconditioned wood, let's say. £35, easy. And if you're thinking about gifting, making a gift to somebody, you know, you're at the Malts Festival, or if you're there soon after and it's still on the shelf, these is easy to pick this up. And then when you want to give somebody something that they can't easily get from anywhere, it's a nice little package to put in their hands, right? And you know, regardless of what the makeup is, that it's always going to be good, interesting whiskey. I have been suggesting for a long time that the reason that the world's in love with the flavour of Springbank and how interesting it is, how dense it is, how thick it can be, how mysterious it can be. That word funk is just a broad brush kind of cover-all when we're talking about it. What we're actually saying is we taste the Springbank character in this. It is funky. It's got that kind of Campbelltown old school nature to it. I think that so much of that is born with the in-house floor maltings. I've got no evidence. There's nothing, but it's the only thing to me that stands out as being unique for Springbank. That 100% floor malted product. So that's what's kind of led me down this path of trying to find other whiskies that are 100% floor malted tonight. Picked up the Long Row Festival bottle whilst up there collecting our keys. Bang went the spending ban. Listen, enjoy it. And you're celebrating. You have to remember to celebrate. Doodle the Drama is saying the added layer, thinking about the malt floor when enjoying a glass of Mitchell juice, is a true ingredient to the magic potion for me. Good that you're enjoying it, especially so early in your journey, Arnie. Not a lot of people would be there yet. George P has just been very generous as well. He's bought 5 Aquavitae gift memberships out there for 5 people that are joining us tonight. Thank you very much, George, for your generosity. Kel Taylor is saying Aquavitae's creamy notes prompted me to open a Hazelburn 14 cast strength. Nose is pure strawberries and cream. Fantastic, Kyle. I hope it's a good one. The 14-year-old cast strength. I wonder which one that is. Hela is saying, you got it right, Roy. Even the guess of my heritage. Okay, we're doing okay. Let's go with Hela then, okay? Nice to have you, buddy. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for confirming that I'm not offending you. Whiskey Weekend Drams, also in the Netherlands, saying, now I'm going to enjoy a glass of that bourbon Springbank cage bottle Aquavitae. I wonder what age it is, Harrow, but it sounds like peak Springbank is declared by my pal for Glasgow Whiskey Club, Sean. That's what he calls it, peak Springbank. The Ginger Genius is saying, I'm not a lover of port casks, but I have to say the Hazelburn 19 was, to me, something special. Often it's not the casks, but it's how it's been handled and how it's been put together. I get it completely, John. Port tends to be one of my kryptonite whiskies, and yet I can find myself absolutely adoring some port cast stuff. Tyree is insane. Summation of 100 parts, floor malt and direct fire, long fermentation, partial triple distillation and worm tubs, etc. Lots going on. I absolutely agree with you. I really do agree with you, and there's no way I'm going to suggest or try and disagree with the famous Tyree Kai from Dramface, right? One of the most intellectual. In fact, I reached out to Tyree and I asked him for some notes on floor malting, and he was good enough to send through all of these for me. Superb guy, superbly generous, superbly supporting as well. I agree with you, Tyree, buddy. I really do. Floor malt, he's saying direct fire. Sorry, there's direct fire everywhere in Scotland. Not everywhere, in a few other places. Long fermentation, that's de rigueur right now. Even Tomatin is doing 168 hours fermentation. And also, depending on the shift pattern, we've seen kind of mixtures of short 70, sub 70-hour fermentations and longer weekend-long fermentations in the past. So we see that everywhere. Partial triple distillation, again, it's not unique to Springbank. Worm tubs, absolutely. There's 22 worm tub distilleries in Scotland now. Lots going on, you're right. For me, the only distillery forever that's been doing 100% floor malting is Springbank. And I think that just marks them as being really quite unique. But like I say, that isn't the only 100% floor malted whiskey I have. I need to keep tabs on the whiskey that I'm sharing with you all tonight. For example, Roy, it's a 12-year-old rotation, 464, if you want to know brilliant stuff. Perfect. Anywhere between that kind of magical 9 years and 15 years. Peak Springbank Harrow, fair, perfect. And Arne is saying, looks like the Kythe team in true form are getting their Maris Otter floor malted too. Yeah, I saw that social media shares on that, absolutely. Kythe are one of the ones that's going to be joining. We should probably mention the difference between, not everyone's going to be able to build a malt floor and then staff a malt floor and run a malt floor. Because if you do that, you're probably going to have a kiln as well and a team to just kiln and dry the barley too. It is super, super labor intensive. It's very, very tempting to just contract in the maltings that 90+% of distilleries do. But what you can do is you can go to certain maltsters. I think there are two. I think Crisp. I'm not sure. I should have checked. I was going to check that they still do it. I don't know. Crisp maltings, but also Warminster maltings are two, just as examples, that offer up the ability for you to source floor malted from a centralised maltster. So rather than them using big kind of drum maltings or some kind of pneumatic setup, some kind of boxed setup, they can do malt from a malt floor. It's probably a hell of a lot more expensive. It's probably less of an alcohol yield from it, all of these things. But if your focus is on chasing flavour, it's going to be attractive for you to do that stuff. And that's the route that Kythe has taken, by the looks of things, with Warminster, and specifically using a heritage grain as well with Maris Otter. But it's also something that a few other distilleries are doing, and we're going to touch upon a couple of them tonight. Before we get there, I'll hold this up to let you see this one. Maybe you can remember this. I used it on the barley vPub with Per Caldenby last year, and I have used this in the past. This is from a distillery that has in-house floor malting, but this is also 100% floor malted. Clutch to saying I'm a doodle the dram here. Springbank 10 off a supermarket shelf was one of my first full bottles, and it was love at first sip, despite my first steps into whiskey. Yeah, I didn't mean to suggest that it wasn't going to be tasty for a beginner. I didn't mean to suggest that you would have to be into whiskey for a while to love Springbank, not at all. But it's because it's so difficult to get a hold of, the days clicked of it being on a supermarket shelf are long, long, long gone. I mean, I've never seen Springbank. I've been into whiskey for 20 years, and I don't think I can ever recall seeing Springbank on a UK supermarket shelf. But in more recent years, 5-6 years, it's difficult to even get it on specialist shelves. You need to be there when it's arriving, basically, more or less. So that's what I was talking about. It's going to be tougher for people that come into whiskey to even get their hands on Springbank in the beginning. Ryan Sutherland is saying, correct with Crisp and Warminster, would love to see a Scottish-based commercial maltings. Obviously, there are Scottish-based maltings, but what Ryan's talking about is commercial maltings that's going to be offering floor maltings. So Crisp and Warminster are both south of the border, looking after distilling and brewing, of course. But anyway, this 100% floor malted Scotch single malt whiskey, I've shared it a couple of times on the vPub. and I've been enjoying it. Really, really enjoying it. It's probably one of the most interesting Benriachs that I have ever come across. Really different. This is the second edition. It's 48.9% ABV. It was bottled in 2022, this one. The barley variety is Concerto, and it does tell us that it's hand malted at the Benriach Distillery in autumn of 2013. It doesn't tell us when it's distilled, but we have to imagine it's going to be distilled in 2013, maybe 2014. So we're looking at something in the order of an 8-year-old whiskey, something along those lines. This is one of the ones that I was sipping as we went live tonight. And the impact for me on this as well, yeah, it's got that kind of depth, that oiliness, the fattiness, the thing. There's just more to it. There's more heft, there's more weight, there's just more to it. But for me, this one has always, and depending on what I sip it alongside, there's a really quite green note in this one, like cut flowers, specifically cut flower stalks. It really takes me into the realms of a florist. And this is softening, this bottle, as it goes down. I'm halfway down this one now, and it's really started to take on this really quite bright lime green character. And depending on what you sip it in contrast with, that green note can taste, and I don't want to put anyone off because it's nothing to be put off by, but it can go a little bit funky. It can go a little bit towards the edge of silagey, farmyard, outdoor farmyard specifically. But it's still bright and fresh and fruity. The reason that I haven't been tearing through this quicker, the reason that I haven't been shouting about this whiskey louder, is that this is very expensive. This is a 7 or 8 or maybe best 9-year-old 9% ABV Benriach, and it's hovering around £100. It's quite expensive, difficult to recommend, but it's a small batch. It's very small batch. There's not many of these bottles released. That's what makes it a wee bit more expensive. Without even talking about the fact that it's 100% floor malted, not just a partial ingredient in the mix here. All of it is. However, I have enjoyed it enough in order for me to go out and source the first edition. And that is Malting Season, first edition, 2021 bottled, again Concerto, same details, just a wee tiny bit lower ABV at 48.7 this one. This is Benriach's first edition. Now, this was more expensive when I bought this one. So I bought the cheaper version, the second edition, and I left this on the shelf. When I went back, this is the cheaper one now. And it's just what's happening in whiskey just now. In order to get the things moving, in order for whiskey to be sold, it's kind of a bit sticky right now. You can see deals and kind of discounting and things like that happening. So I managed to get this a bit cheaper. I think I paid 91 for this, going from memory. Listen, it's still not cheap, but it was cheaper than what it was. I think that was down from about 107. So it's cheaper than what I otherwise would have paid for this wee bottle. There we go. It says on the back, Benriach malting season celebrates the floor maltings, which lie at the heart of the Benriach distillery, the historical lifeblood of the distillery. They have remained in production for over 120 years since John Duff built the distillery. The malt produced during our malting season results in a rounded and creamy single malt of exceptional richness and character, a tribute to our founder and the slow craft of his historic maltings. So I think it's quite nice that they are actually paying homage to their traditional roots, if you, no pun intended. I'm only going to pour a wee tiny drop of this. Now remember, this isn't a review. I'm not even going to do a comparison between the two to say one's better than the other. It's absolutely a different batch. It's fully intended to be quite different. What I will say though, is the first release is a little bit darker in colour. And because we know it's natural colour, we can take some cues from that and we can enjoy the fact that it's maybe a wee bit richer in colour. Let's see how it noses. Caveat with neck pour, all of that stuff. It's not a review. It's first impressions. Immediately, that green grassiness, the green stalks thing that I'm talking about from the second release is not as nearly as obvious there. I don't know if it's even striking me at all. I'm going to go back and what I've just said and do a wee comparison. Yeah, that's the floral thing, carnations even. Like I say, like you're cutting fresh flowers. No, this is warm. This is toffee, cinder toffee. There's much more of an earthiness here. A caramelized thing. Biscuity malt. Biscuit tin, like you've stuck your face in a biscuit tin. %48.7%, slightly lighter on ABV. Let's go with this one. Again, you've got that nice viscosity, that nice mouthfeel, despite the fact, compared to the other ones that I've been sipping tonight at higher ABV, despite the fact that these Benriachs are reduced down to the high 40s, you've still got a lot of mouthfeel and texture. Everything is still intact. It's not got the fattiness, it's not got the thickness, it's not got that thick, waxy, oily thing going on, but it does have a nice, firm feel, mouthfeel. Not a lot of fruit. There's a little bit of fruit here, a little bit of apple, slightly tart apple, slightly not quite as sweet. But what we've got lots of cereal here. And the cereal, it's almost like a caramel cake type mix. So you've got a biscuity cereal base with a kind of sweetened toffee, a biscuit toffee note. Is this different from regular Benriach? Yes, I would say so. But the second edition is more, at least double the difference away, if that makes any sense at all. So whatever step this is away from Benriach, the second edition is twice as much. This has got that grass, that green. This is very green. This is bright green whiskey. This is just a much more kind of malty biscuit texture. It's very reminiscent of hobnobs, caramel hobnobs. That's been very specific to the UK here. Clean though, and well balanced. Could do with a wee bit more fruit, I think. Maybe that'll come through. Remember, the caveat here is that a neck pour. This is fantastic, geeky, super interesting, very precise, laser focused look on a very specific aspect of Benriach, their floor malted spirit, their product. And it's a wonderful privilege to be able to connect with that. As a whiskey for whiskey's sake and for drinking's sake and for sharing sake, it's difficult to recommend at the high price point. It really is. It might be because it's such a small outturn. It might be because of the costs involved and using so much of their in-house floor malt in order to make this. There's a lot of reasons for it. It might just be an arbitrary price, honestly. But at 90, 100, 107 pounds, it's out of recommendable reach. If money's no object to you and you're a geek and you love all this stuff, yes, go for it. You are going to taste a difference. I'm confident of that. You are going to taste something that's a little bit more dense, a little bit more heft, a little bit more body. I'm going to keep those two together and keep track. It's my Springbank here, and these are my White Peaks over here. Fantastic. Graham Fraser is in. Good to see you, Graham. How are you doing? Ryan Sutherland is saying, moan the silage. Hale is saying, in a glass, some Kilchoman heavily peated right now. Can anyone tell me if there is some floor malting in this banger? I don't know the specific heavily peated batches, if I'm honest. But if you're having a whiskey and you're calling it a banger and you're loving it, just raise a glass and thanks and enjoy it, Hale. Good to hear you're enjoying it. Luna Aaron is saying, do you know if Benriach is or has been doing a floor malted whiskey in their experimental series like Cara Gold, High Enzyme, etc.? In my understanding, no, that has not appeared. I don't know if that's even something that's possible. If stocks that they have for them to do something like that, Luna, it would be amazing. Whiskey Weekend Drama is saying, not expensive if on discount for €65. Got a bottle with Eric Eggins. Fantastic. So there are some deals out there, and not all people are having to pay the big money for those. Good morning to you. And the Barfly says, Glenn Duncan in Australia. On my way to work, we'll catch the replay as usual. Have a great day, everyone. Don't work too hard this Friday. Now that you're back watching us on the replay, Glenn, with your feet up, I hope you have a fantastic weekend, buddy. Thanks for dropping in to say hello. Pedro in Brazil is saying, bye, Aquavit and Barflies. I'll catch up on replay. See you again next week. Good to have had you in, buddy. And again, like Glenn, now that you're picking up on the replay, nice to have you back, buddy. And Graham Fraser is saying, I got my Benriach malting season for £90 on Release Roy. So it looks like 90 quid was maybe in 2021 the release price for it. There's still stocks out there on retail. If 90 is RRP, don't overpay. Graham Fraser saying, I heard that as the Benriach malt floor needed too much to do refurbishment that season, number 3, 2025 was to be the last release. Season number 3, 2025 is going to be their last floor malted release. Might turn into a wee collectible set then. Overland Drams, Chuck is in. Good to see you, buddy. Saying, cheers, buddy. What a fun topic. Colorado has a couple of newer floor malted distilleries. Chuck at Overland Drams is very up to speed. He likes to study his homegrown malts and whiskies. So he would know. It'd be interesting to see how they're getting on over there. Doodle the Drama is saying, I'm on tenterhooks now to see if Ardnamurchan is going to get their malting floor up and running soon. That's right. So there's a few on the way. Obviously, Glengarry have reinvested and put a new malting floor back in again to go back more towards their old school style. That's already up and running. We've been talking about Kythe already. I've heard that Dunfale as well in Speyside is also going to be doing their own in-house floor malting as well. And of course, we know that Ardnamurchan has a malt floor. It's not a big malt floor. It's actually, as malt floors go, it's fairly small. But they've got it there. But it's not just a case of spreading barley out on the malt floor, right? It's not just a case. They need a steep. They need a way to steep it. They need a way to kiln it. They need a whole workflow and processing, and they need a malting team. So it's going to take a bit of a while to put that in. But yeah, it would have been nice that they're already there. To hear that they're already there. They're not quite there yet. And Kayla is saying, and all the barflies, thanks for the chat, guys. I'm leaving and I'm going to catch up on the replay. Well, it's nice to have welcomed you in tonight and got your name right while you were here, buddy. Good to have had you. You're doing good work for us, Whiskey folk. Appreciate you, buddy, says Overland Drams. Thank you very much. Chuck and Kyle is saying, did you ever get to Hill Rock during your time in the Hudson Valley? Prettiest little floor maltings you ever did see. And the malt barley android. No, I had no interest in maltings or anything back. That was the early 90s, Kyle. I was a mere 21 years old when I was over there. No, I didn't, is the short answer to that. Let's move on to the next bottle. I've got a couple of things to share with you tonight. We've so far been talking about, apart from White Peak, that's sourced from Warminster. Their floor malted barley at White Peak will be sourced from Warminster. But everything else was spoken about, whether it's any of the Mitchell juice, it's Doodle the Dram Arnie mentioned it tonight, the Hazelburn, Springbank, Kilchoman, Longrow, all of that stuff is in-house. The Benriach malting season that we've been sipping is in-house. But if I was to suggest to you, let's have some more product that's made from sourced floor malted barley. I would put this whiskey that I'm going to hold up to you is an extreme in two ways. It's an extreme in that I think over the 5 or 6 now single cask and small batch releases I've tasted from them to date, I would suggest to you that today in 2025, this is probably the most densely flavoured malt whisky made in Scotland. I'm not saying it's the tastiest, I'm not saying it's the best, I'm saying it is the most densely flavoured. It is ridiculously easy to fall into a glass of this stuff and get caught searching on every sip for new flavour layers. It is so intense and dense and compact that parsing it and just teasing out the different flavours, you just run out of space in your notebook. You give up. You just start to enjoy what's in the glass. What can I be talking about? Well, unfortunately, I need to mention the other extreme. It is extremely difficult to get. I have 3 bottles on the shelf now. All of those 3 bottles have appeared to me in the last 18 months, and they have been only because I've gone there to buy them, or I've been at a festival where they've been on sale. That's the only way I've been able to get these. There is one that's actually been gifted to me, which is, I think, no, it's not this one. It's another one that's up there. I'm talking about Dornock. This is from that tiny, tiny little micro distillery up there, north of Inverness, in Sutherland, at Dornock. All of the bottles that I have, two of them are single casks, and one is a small batch. They are all fantastic, and they all have to be sipped in tiny, tiny, tiny little amounts, because every single bottle that goes on the market, you have to apply by ballot to get this. So you sign up, you get a notification, you put through your payment details and things like that, and you hope that they're going to come through and say, yeah, we've taken your money, you've won a bottle. It's never happened for me. I've not won one, but I have managed to get it through other ways. This specific one is a 5-year-old, and it is a cask number. They usually put the cask number on it. It's 513 bottles. This is bottle number 394. Wow, it tells us on the back maybe. It's from Maris Otter, this one. Fermentation details are on there. It's a 9-day fermentation. This was filled, the cask was filled in December 2019 and bottled in January of 2025. So we've got a 6-year-old product here. And this is 2 Islay quarter casks. So this is a wee while since I've tried this one. Like I say, I have to be quite precious with this stuff. Farms, hayloft, more biscuity notes, a wee bit of the silage, but not green, more kind of a funky, wet grass hay thing. A lovely kind of warmth. A little bit of wet canvas, like camping aromas. Heaps and heaps of ripe, sweet fruit. Ripe melon. Pears, super sweet pears. And a kind of a squidgy, custardy dough type aspect. Dough is good. Dough or sponge cake, but it's sweet. Anyway, cheers. Really, really, really flavorful. When you get to love whiskey and you love the flavors that you can find in whiskey and discover in whiskey, it's insane that you can get hooked at you know, a 40% 10-year-old Glengoyne, in my case, right? And just be just bowled over by the amount of flavour that's in the glass. And then as you go along your journey and you start to discover more and more distilleries, you start to increase your ABV, all of these things. You always, when am I going to hit the buffers? When am I going to get to the end? When is it going to be at the point where there's no more intensity of flavour to discover? And it doesn't ever seem to run out for me in whiskey. But I think we're here when you taste something like this, you're very close to that point. You're at a point where you can tell that every step of the process, every step of what's made this glass of whiskey has been to dial everything up to be as flavorful as it can possibly be, and still maintain some poise, some balance. Just astonishingly flavorful whiskey. Thompson Brothers, if you've ever been to see that distillery, it's not much bigger than some kitchens, right? It's very, very small. So the idea of them having a malting floor, you know, I don't know, maybe it's Struy Distillery, the new project, maybe they'll be trying to do maybe some of their own maltings or whatever. But what they're doing right now is they're sourcing it, and they source, I believe, from Warminster maltings, floor-malted barley. I think they have chosen that for a very, very specific reason. Obviously, those guys are distillers, but they know when you speak to people who are impassioned, you know, the guys behind Dunphail, let's say, the guys behind Kythe, Angus and Johnny and Aaron, you know, they're going to have probably step one on the note paper was going to be like, we're going to source floor malted barley. When you speak to these people and realize that they're invested whiskey geeks, they're whiskey enthusiasts, and that's what they're choosing, there's two things here. They're trying to bring as much flavor, as much craft as possible. They're not chasing efficiency, they're chasing quality and flavor. But what they're also trying to do is they're trying to reach back into the whiskies that they've been privileged to try from the old days. Whiskies from post-war, whiskies from the 60s and the 70s, whiskies from the 80s and the 90s even, and things that are difficult to afford or find or try today, but they've been weaned into whiskey, trying those really, really special things. And they've discovered that a lot of that flavor that's coming through is through some of these kind of human elements. And one of the first human elements that you can possibly put into that liquid is how you handle that grain at the beginning of the process. It's no coincidence that all of these distilleries go in that direction. Which brings me on to the next one, which brings me on to the second distillery actually tonight that we're going to be talking about outside of Scotland. Falsgraf is saying, okay, it's not a good idea to follow a vPub after 8 hours of driving, Aquavite. Everyone will have to catch all that comes on replay. Falsgraf, you need your rest, my friend. You need to recover from potentially your midgy bites, but it'll be good to welcome you back here on the replay. Hello again. And it'll be good to welcome you back here next week, buddy. Nice to have had you in class. Good to have you. Doodle Drama is saying, is Lochlean not also trying to makeshift malting here and there? Absolutely. We've heard famously about the experimentations with trying to malt some barley in the back of it, or trying to steep, use the back of a trailer as a steep, for example. All of these things that they're trying to put in place. There's no doubt that there's a lot of attraction to do that type of thing. And Warren Tanner is saying, even Roy and fellow barflies, thrilled to stop by tonight for a superb topic. Good to have you in, Warren. He's saying, enjoying a Glencairn 15 and dreaming of the floor maltings and days gone by, Slantia. One of the purest, cleanest, most delicate 15-year-olds out there. One to celebrate. I think it was today, actually, that Dramface put out a review for that. A dual review from two of our writers. A good review it is, Warren. I hope you caught it. Maybe that was what put you in the mind for it. Michael Wood is here. Good to see you, Michael. Right, it's a good vPub, but I have to sneak off from my back row seat. We'll close the door quietly. Good night, everyone. Michael, I know that you'll be back playing the quiz at the end along with your fellow chimpanzee. Good to have had you in, Michael. And Overland Rams Chuck is saying, Roy, do you see floor maltings growing in popularity in Scotland? I think this is the point, Chuck, of everything tonight. What we're seeing, instead of those floor maltings disappearing like they have been for decades since the 60s, I would say, what we're actively seeing is more and more, not necessarily floor maltings coming back, that is happening, but we are seeing more floor malted whiskies coming back, which is a different thing altogether. If all the distilleries out there with floor maltings put out floor malted single malts, we would be spoilt for choice. But so many of them, you know, the Highland Parks, the Balvenis, the Lafroigs, the Bamors, so many of them are putting out their liquid with partial floor malting for the majority of what they do. So it's a slightly different thing. Beautiful answer. Thank you for that. Yeah, you're very, very welcome, Chuck. Good to have you, buddy. But generally speaking, there is a movement back to, because we're all chasing flavour now, we're all willing to spend a bit more money on the liquid that's in the bottle, if it's flavourful, if it's loved, if it's good quality. So people are taking advantage of that, and they've been able to realise this shift back to less efficient, more expensive ways of doing things for flavour's sake. And now I'm going to talk about a distillery that somehow doesn't do any of that. They managed to do all of the flavour for flavour's sake. They managed to do floor maltings. They managed to do all sorts of crazy stuff, and yet managed to bring us something that's really, really affordable. And I want to know how they're able to do it. Maybe it's the distillation, maybe it's the rigs that they've got set up, maybe it's their kit, maybe it's their attitude, the way they're doing things. I'm not sure how it is. But of course, I'm speaking about Bristol and the skunk works that is Circumstance. This is a bottle of their single grain estate whiskey, just to give you an example. Here we've got a bottle. This is a Stevie O bottle. This is a single grain whiskey from them. Specifically, this is their organic release. This is using a mix of malted barley, also roasted barley and unmalted barley too. And the most recent one that I've had on the vPub a wee while ago, I'd forgotten that I'd even bought this. This is their oat whiskey. I need to get familiar with this again over the course of this weekend. I've just got so many bottles kicking around, it's easy to forget these things. But all of these Circumstance whiskies, you might remember this famous one up here. I thought Alberto had bought this for me, and I reached out to Alberto today to say, did you buy me the Circumstance? I thought it was him. Someone has gifted me this Circumstance in the last year, since Glasgow in November. I need to remember who it was. This is the last bottle I have now of that 3-year-old Thompson Brothers Circumstance, 57.1% ABV, one of the most mind-blowingly surprising whiskies that I've sipped in recent years. Amazing stuff. I've bought so many bottles, shared it with loads and loads of people, and it's just become one of those bottles that even when you know how surprising it's likely to be when you go into it, it's not been oversold. You're still surprised when you taste it. It's fantastic stuff. All of the bottles I've shared with you, that one up there was £55 retail through the Thompson Brothers, but all of these bottles that I've just shared with you now, the oat whiskey, the organic, the single grain estate, all less than £50 for 70 cl bottles. Some of them as low as £41 and £42. The value that's coming out of Bristol from Circumstance is jaw-dropping. How are they able to do this at these prices? The danger there is that we look at the prices and think, oh, well, it's cheap whiskey, it's young whiskey. No. These guys are maniacs for flavour. Maniacs. They're throwing out all the convention. They're doing exactly what they want to do. They're being as playful as they want to be, and they're driving everything from a flavour perspective. You can participate in all of that fun experimentation right now today in 2025 for beans, for peanuts. Affordable, high quality craft whiskey, 40 to 50 quid. I can't say enough about it. It's fantastic. I'm going to uncork one of theirs tonight, but I've gone a slightly different route. I missed out batch 1 of this. I heard it was pretty good. This is batch 2. I think it's batch 2. Yeah, this is batch 2. And this is a 50 cl bottle of Circumstance from that boutique whiskey company. I decided to go with this. This is more expensive than their own stuff. Thompson Brothers one was more expensive as well. £55 for a 70cl. This was £50, 50 quid, I think, of that order for a 50cl. So it's working out £70 for a 70cl, I suppose. 51.1% ABV. It's a single cask. Tells us on the back that this is from New European Oak, so it suggests that it's never held spirit before. It's gone in. It's 3 years old. Tells us the age on the front here. And it's kind of like they've got some otherworldly type iconography artwork here on the front. Quite similar to batch one, I believe. But like I say, I missed batch one, and by the time I decided to go back and get it, it was gone. And batch two comes along, which I'm quite happy about. And it's nice to see that even though it's more expensive than the circumstance stuff, it's still pretty affordable. It just needs to be good, right? We know it's going to be interesting. This is single grain English whiskey. That's all it says on the label here. We know that Circumstance, all of their grain, all of their malted grain, everything that's malted is floor malted. All of their barley is going to be floor malted. It's just something that they do. Again, it makes me wonder how they're able to do it at the price. Aaron is saying, I got you on the Circumstance. It was you, Aaron. It was you. And it was in Glasgow, was it? Or was it maybe in Paisley when we met in Paisley? I can't remember, buddy, but I'm so, so grateful. I'm so glad that you're here tonight as well to remind me. Thank you, buddy. It's going to be a precious bottle and a special moment when it does go opened. Reb is saying, good evening, Roy. Just arrived in the UK, here for a few weeks. Good to welcome you, buddy. Bring some nice weather with you, won't you? It's been a wee bit. We had a fantastic May, but it's been a mess since. Alberto Road to Dram, he's saying, I wish it was me. Never managed to get my hands on one of those. Okay, that's him talking about the 3-year-old Circumstance. Well, I'll tell you what, if you remind me when you come over, Alberto, maybe that'll be the reason that we crack open that wee 3-year-old that's up on the shelf. There's a wee 3-year-old in my glass right now. I have to say immediately, oh, quite a lot of cask notes on the nose. Cask character, and I was just going to say, just look how dark this is for a 3-year-old whiskey. And it's that New European Oak, right? It's maybe just going to be in a toasted barrel, maybe toasted and charred. I don't know. New European Oak, it could be anything. But what we're saying when we say New European Oak, it hasn't been used for wine, fortified wine. It hasn't been used for sherry. It hasn't been used for spirits before. Yeah, this is a new virgin cask. It's going to be quite an active cask. And that comes across straight away on the nose. We've got lots of rich wood spice, nice cinnamon, a nice sense of a nice heat, cinnamon, warm, hot spice. Warm ginger. You know where I'm going with this. Cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg. It's very like that. There's a really kind of nice burnt orange thing going on here as well, like specifically burnt orange rind, burnt peel, not black burnt, just kind of charred, singed. It's a kind of nice kind of potpourri thing, like kind of maybe it's the cinnamon and the citrus, the orange oils. But these are wood. I think most of these are wood flavors that I'm getting from this. This is a very specific single cask that Labotiki Whiskey Company has. And I just bought it because I've got loads of the Circumstance official bottles on the shelf now. And I wanted to try another indie. Cheers, everyone. Bang. Okay, so I was struggling to get past the wood notes on the nose. This is very wood forward on the palate as well, absolutely. But what you've got here is this this is where they've had the confidence to go with this virgin, this raw wood, because they've obviously got a spirit that holds up. You can taste the whiskey here. You can taste on the palate. It's not obvious on the nose at first. Bear in mind, usual caveats apply. It's a neck pour. I've just uncorked this tonight as well. But this is much more exciting on the palate. Nose is lovely, very approachable. But I have to say I was struggling to get beyond anything generic. I think you probably picked up on that. But as soon as you taste it, so much to say. So, does not taste like 3-year-old whiskey. That's the first thing. This is going to be good at catching people out. People are going to be up at 8 and 10 years for this, no question. They might be able to detect that there's maybe a kind of virgin wood at play here. There's a lot of wood spice. There's a lot of wood forward notes here. There's a little bit of a tannin thing on the finish. But what's sitting right at the core of this, and it's almost like a visual shape, it arrives, and then you've just got this big unctuous pop, like a big burst of rich, dense flavour. And it starts to get quite, it's almost like it's thrown the fruit and the spice to the side, and you've got this lovely, big, biscuity, weighty, fresh, sweet spirit at the centre. I guarantee you go to any of the circumstance bottles that I've held up tonight. Go to any of the circumstance bottles that you happen across, whether you're going to direct to them, whether you're going down to Bristol, whether you're going to your specialist retailer and saying, do you stock circumstance, whether you're picking it up online, doesn't matter which one you buy, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I guarantee you are going to end up with a whiskey that tastes like no other whiskey you have in your shelves. And sometimes that means going in the odd end of the spectrum. What I've been amazed about with circumstance, it doesn't matter whether they're using their floor-malted barley, unmalted barley, roasted barley, crazy grains, whether they're in the direction of oats. It doesn't matter what they bring out. They never go beyond. They never get so crazy that it's kind of gone a bit petrol. It's gone a bit undrinkable. It's gone a bit hairspray. It's gone a bit solventy. They've never gone that far. They've always been able to keep it in check. They've always brought something fascinatingly unique. It's like when you get whiskey fatigue, when you feel like you've tried, when you're in the mood for something different, you don't know where to turn. I don't know if I could suggest that this is as good as that 3-year-old that Thompson Brothers that I've just come to love, that green label one here. But it is a very, very good whiskey. This has got a wee bit more of a kind of, on the finish, I said tannins, but it's kind of a wee bit of there is a wee bit of solvent in here, a wee bit of kind of creosote and shoe polish type note, but ever so slight. In this, it's one of those whiskies, and at 51.1% ABV, it's probably going to take water very well. You're going to just be sit and play with it, but you're not going to be able to sit and relax and just enjoy it. It's one of those whiskies that's so intense that you're going to be sucked in, asking questions at every sip. Quite amazing. Quite amazing. Graham is saying, I tried that circumstance at Boutique Blind Tasting in Edinburgh with Dave Worthington recently. We were generally impressed. Barry Coleman is saying, hello, Ryan, everyone. The Kilchoman. We'll have to wait for another week. I'll have to catch this one on the replay. P.S. I've asked my English relatives to look out for circumstance. Barry, I think that's a very clever route to take. But if you've got English relatives, you can maybe buy online or get them to buy online for you as well, and get it delivered until you're over or they're over to you or whatever it may be. I know that a lot of the whiskies that I speak about in the vPub, and it might definitely be true tonight, are going to be quite specific to where I live. I hope it helps you when you're traveling, or I hope it helps people like Barry who have got people here that they can get it delivered to and things. Ginger Genius is saying totally off piste, but are you planning another under the table session at the Glasgow Whisky Festival this year? I am planning it. There's nothing confirmed. John, as you know, buddy, it'll go out to patrons first. I am not going to talk about it loudly in the vPub because we managed to set that place up for 60 people and I squeezed in 70, and it was a mess. It was an absolute mess, as you saw, but it's just because it's difficult for me to say no. So that's going to go out through Patreon, buddy. I know you're going to be keen to join. And again, Tom Freeney saying, evening, Agraviti and Barflies. Hope you're all doing well. I'm cracking open the Springbank 10 I bought, thanks to Alistair McPhail pointing it out. On theme and a treat after today. Tom, that's wonderful to hear. You're not the first to be cracking open some Springbank tonight just to get on theme and to celebrate the fact that you've got some nice whiskey needing liberated. Rob Smith is saying it's always good to have bottles of something different on the shelf. Any circumstance you buy, I guarantee, is going to be very different. Rick Johnson is saying, Aquavita Roy, what is the bottle on your top shelf behind you with the glass stopper? Is it yours, Rick? Is it your bottle? This one here, that's a Rick Johnson bottle. Which shoulder are you looking? Top shelf behind you with the glass stopper. This one here, this is a Canadian club. This is an 18-year-old Canadian club from Graham Young. Is that the one that you're talking about? Yeah, I tend to, when there are gifts coming in, I tend to put them on display for a wee while, just to. It's just amazing the generosity out there from all of you guys. I've got one more bottle to open tonight. One more, and this is the one that's going to surprise you the most, I think. I've got, and I never got it off the shelf, and I'm not going to go and get it off the shelf because it's a bottle that's here that I always use as an example to throw shade on. It's one of the worst whiskies I've got in my collection generally, and it's a Kilchoman. It's crazy to think that, but it's the 4th edition of the 100% Islay. It really does taste, to me, and nose and taste, still to this day, a little bit like kind of hamster cage. And just kind of the farm side of things has just gone a wee bit too far on that, and I struggle, but I keep it here as an example. That said, you might remember when Anthony Wills joined the vPub a while ago, he heard that I'd been whinging about that 4th edition, and he sent me the 10th edition. And I loved it so much that I managed to get myself, I bought another 10th edition. This is a fantastic whiskey, and I'm speaking about 10th edition 100% Islay. So I think the 10th edition would have been 2021. This came out, go from memory, I think, 12,400 bottles. So this was about 2013 distillation, something of that order. But we're now on 100% Islay edition 14. Now, I know what you're saying, Roy. This is about the barley. This is 100% Islay barley. That's different from floor maltings. Well, now we know that Kilchoman has joined the fray, joined the fraternity, if you like, of distilleries that have in-house floor maltings. And they've installed a maltings on site at the farm, at the distillery, in Kilchoman. We know that that's the case. And what we have here is in the 14th edition at 50% alcohol ABV, that they all are 50% ABV, the 100% Islay. Yep. What we have in the 14th edition is, and I don't know, I meant to research this, I meant to send a wee email up to Kilchoman to say, look, just how long have you been floor malting, and how long have you been making sure that your 100% Islay releases are all made from a 100% floor malted at the distillery. Tells us on the box here on the side, for those of you who doubt it. Once harvested, the barley was turned by hand twice a day by our malting team as it germinated on our malt floor. Now, to me, it doesn't say in black and white letters, it doesn't say this is 100% Islay barley malted on our malt floor, but given the timescales involved, given the fact that this is the 14th edition, given the fact that that language exists on the box, the suggestion there is this is unique. This is not only 100% Islay, but it's floor malted at the distillery. Quiet little pour. Well, a lot of people say that the 100% Islay has got less peat smoke. It's less peaty than the whiskey that they make from perhaps the barley that they buy in. For whatever reason, 100% Islay can often be a little lower on peat, but I can tell you right now there's a lot of peat in the air here already, a lot of smoke. A wee bit of salt and vinegar crisps, a wee bit of just a neck pour again. A wee bit of a restrained, quiet, farmy element. Lovely fruit, green, crisp, fresh. There's lots of, and for the first time tonight, the grainy maltiness is moving towards a wee bit of nuttiness. Fantastic. A nice kind of gentle spice, nothing like the kind of really quite extreme spices that we were getting from that boutique-y circumstance. There's just a nice kind of, I think the peat's bringing a nice kind of savoury warmth to things. Okay, let's see what it does to us for its floor malted barley on the palate. Cheers. I drink too much peaty whiskies. I love it. I just love peaty whiskies. Doesn't matter if it's Ardnaghs or Lagavulins, Ardmores. Doesn't matter. Just when you're in the mood for a peaty whiskey, there is nothing else that fits the bill. Very guilty of just consuming and reaching for too many peaty whiskies at times, I think. However, this is the type of whiskey that teaches you that judicious, balanced use of peat is often the way to go. I have discovered, often to my detriment, that when you have too many peaty whiskies, you're drinking your 7-year-old Kalilas, your Lagavulin 8s, your Wee Beastie 5s, all of these things, you're looking for that kind of peaty, salty, coastal, outdoor hit. That what you eventually do is that you quickly taste beyond that and you dial it out, and where do you go from there? You end up at Octomores and things like that, only to discover that Octomore often taste less peaty than a lot of the kind of more Southern Isles and various other peaty whiskies that are out there. You start to work out that the only way that you can get your peaty hit back again is to back off from the peat. Leave it for a while, or certainly involve yourself in whiskies that are much more subtly peated. And to me, that's, despite the fact that I got a lot of kind of nice smoky notes coming out as soon as I poured this glass tonight, to me, this is much more of what that is like. A lovely runny honey there on the nose too. Still getting a lot of that farmy stuff. A nice warm honey, a manuka honey, a waxy honey. I need to remember how much I paid for this, because that's right up there with the nicest Kilchomans I've had. A couple of years ago, 2022, Fashil released a 16-year-old, absolutely gorgeous whiskey. Some of the whiskies they've released over the years have been just a bit too expensive, but it's because perhaps there's so little of it, of course. This is really beautiful whiskey. Really beautiful, well crafted, very pleasing, I've never said this about a Kilchoman. There's an elegance, there's a poise to this. The mouthfeel is still, I've still got it here. It's still sitting on the palate. 50% ABV is good. As I'm sipping this tonight, I'd love to see it at 55. I'd love to just have a little bit more grip there. But I think it's just so nice. Sitting at 50, it's coming across soft. Wow. I expected that tonight I would have some challenging whiskies, some out there whiskies, some funky whiskies, some kind of wild things, things that are a bit different, starting with that white peak, moving into a different take on Springbank. Another weird Benriach, but it ended up being softer. Circumstances has always taken me all over the place. Another strange one tonight. But I've not gone even right up to the one at the end, the Kilchoman at the end. There's nothing that's taken me in any kind of extreme or oddball direction. All of the whiskies that I've tasted tonight, I believe, I'm not 100% sure on the circumstance, but I'm fairly confident it's made from 100% floor-malted barley. It could be that it's not the case. It is marked as a single grain. I think the takeaway from tonight is that what the floor malting side of it is potentially bringing is a big, thick element of making it stand out, making it being a little bit different, a bit more thoughtful, a wee bit more challenging. Another wee element of whiskey enjoyment that helps us slow down and think for a wee bit. Arne is saying Ardna or other Ardna, Ardnaho or Ardnamurchan. It's true, absolutely true when you talk about PT whiskies. In that context, I should have been talking about Ardnaho, but I actually meant Ardnamurchan. I'm talking about the cask strength was in mind. It's one of the most enjoyable whiskies to reach for, Ardnamurchan cask strength. Ardnaho is, again, Infinite Loch is sitting here. It's my whiskey of the year. Absolutely love this stuff. Very, very peaty whiskey. So yeah, Ardna could have been both, but tonight I actually meant Ardnamurchan. Road to Drama is saying the 14th edition is what I am sipping. Curious to hear your take. Alberto, please chime in. Are you enjoying it as much as I just did? Usual caveat, of course, it's a neck pour. But you usually get a pretty good first impression, and I am really happy with that. Really happy with it. Anyway, I think that having come from a place where I thought I was going to be sharing with you 5 whiskies, of which 4 of them were going to be from Springbank, and maybe have a Benriach that I knew was floor malted, to discover that White Peak are doing what they're doing, to discover that Circumstance, all of their malted grain is going to be floor malted. Then to discover that the Kilchoman 100% Islay is now using their in-house 100% floor malted grain to make their 100% Islay. To hear about the plans for Glengarry, Kythe, Dunfale, Ardnamurchan. This is on top of the dozen or so floor maltings that we already have out there in Scotland today. This is recognition. This is vocal, demonstrable action that tells us, that betrays the fact that people believe that floor malting makes a significant difference. When I was at Springbank in 2023, I can tell you that working with grain was real hard work. We only did it in short shifts, a few hours at a time. But the malt team there, the staff there at Springbank, that's their job. And they work really, really hard. That's expensive. It's tough to keep people. You need to pay them well. You need to teach them well. And that's not just at Springbank, that's at every place that has a malt floor. It's expensive, it's difficult, it's challenging. It is too easy to say, shut that down, give us some more warehousing space, some bottling plant space, some production space, whatever it may be. You should get rid of that maltings and let's just buy our maltings in. That's such an easy decision to make. But there are loads and loads of distilleries out there that maintain that floor maltings. And there are more and more distilleries now that are going back to floor maltings or installing floor maltings. There is a very, very, very strong reason for that. And I think it's everything to do with flavour. Alberto's saying, I'm enjoying it and very much agree with your point about a milder peat. I love that lightly peated and elegant profile. I think it's really the most elegant Kilchoman that I'm in memory of ever trying. Doodle Drama is saying this might sound lofty, but at a time where we're already bombarded with AI and other synthetics, it's amazing how many layers of real are in our drams. Floor malting is one of those. That's a perfect way to sum it up. Brilliant, Arnie, thank you. Chris Everwind is here. Good to see you, buddy. Saying Aquavita, have you mentioned if you have found any commonalities in flavour of your floor malting expressions? That's an interesting one, and I think the only way I thought, if I was to predict this before I went live tonight, Chris, what I would have been talking about is a funky side of things, a kind of more kind of challenging, like wet dog and silage and hay and kind of mulch and all of these things. That's what I was kind of half expecting. But as I've gone through tonight and sipped these different whiskies, they haven't all had that strong character. Some of them have had that. Some of them have had it a wee bit. All of them have had something a bit unique. Whether we can put that down to the floor malting of the barley or not, it's just whimsy. It's just the fun and the indulgence of whiskey enthusiasts, right? It's just me. But I can tell you, hand on heart, that all of the whiskies I've tried, maybe with the exception of the Kilchoman, I think the Kilchoman is much more elegant than I expected it to be, much more refined. But everything else, really quite different, like a step change. I'm just moving over into different lanes. I don't know if that answers you, Chris, but and Chuck is saying, would look forward to trying this Kilchoman, would be happy to make it my personal first from them. Well, I think hopefully the 100% Islay makes it out to you over there in Colorado, Chuck. You need to keep your eyes peeled. If not, you know a few folk here, back here in the homeland, the motherland, that can help you out, buddy. Ben is saying, batch 14, it's weird, it's 9 years old and they don't write it on the label, but only on the cardboard box. Well, they write it on the website as well, that's right. It's almost 10 years old. It's all, I think Kilchoman are just over the age statement thing now. Recently they brought out the 14-year-old, of course. The Fishiel's got an age statement. They tend to have age statements now. They do the age statement thing, but I think for their core range and a lot of these kind of Lochgorms, 100% Islay, that type of thing, they're just over it. It's nice that they're at least telling us somewhere. That's what we've been asking for, Rolfie, right? That they just have it a wee bit transparent and give us an insight into what rough age the product is. Greenham all, good to see you, James. James in Sweden saying, opening my Springbank open day bottle for the occasion. Bloody cracking drop, Slantia. That's what I had, and I opened it a wee bit earlier. I hope you were in earlier when I opened that, James. I think you will enjoy it. Benny Fries is in, and he's bought me a very generous dram. Benny, it's really good to see you, buddy. Cheers, Roy and Barflies. Hope you're well. I'm here in the limited on the phone. Campbelltown Funk. Another source could be the yeast in the fermentation. I have an unfiltered organic apple cider vinegar from which I totally get Campbelltown Funk every time. Take care. It's a nice, and the thing is that's the wonderful thing about being an enthusiast and being into this stuff. We don't know what specific part of the production is bringing that character for us. We don't know if it's the same all the time, and we don't know if it's just one area or multiple areas all playing together in order to do it. But it's great fun sipping. It's great fun exploring. It's great fun comparing. And it's the best fun sharing. But that's a very generous dram, Benny. Thank you very much. Cheers to you over in Denmark, buddy. All the best. Black Fen Conrad, good to see you. Avanjarix table malting is the future. It's to floor malting what raised beds are to vegetable growing, down with unnecessary blending. I don't even know about this. This has only been... if you can tell me that Avanjarix is still making whiskey, that would be the first amazing thing. And if you can show me or demonstrate to me how they're doing the malting up there, I would be interested to hear about that as well, Conrad. Good to have you in, buddy. So there we go tonight. I think we've kept it, given the fact that I've shared 7 whiskies with you tonight, we've kept it in good time. I don't know if I'm getting better at it, or it's just the way that tonight's gone. Either way, we'll finish out tonight, as we always do, with a quiz at the end. I always try and kind of give you an idea whether it's going to be a tough quiz or not, but it doesn't really matter. What I would like you folks to do is just be brave enough to go with it. Don't take it too seriously. Know that it's intended to occasionally trip you up and make you think, and maybe make you curious about other things that are not. The quiz is not all about floor malting. Don't worry, it's not about any of the whiskies I've sipped tonight, although there might be some of it in there. It's just a fun wee whiskey quiz at the end, as it always is. Daisy is in as well. Evening, Roy. Barflies got absolutely drenched on the way home. Just poured a dram of Springbank 8. Wonderful to have you in, Daisy, just in time for the quiz at the end. And that's what she's saying, just in time for the quiz. Rob Smith is saying, what quiz? Good to have you in, Rob, as always. Brilliant stuff. Thank you all very much for your generosity. Thank you for your support in here as Barflies. And a huge, huge, huge thank you to all my amazing, wonderful patrons. Marco is in. Good to see you, Marco. Marco, I always Vucic, I would want to say, but I might be wrong. Just to say hello from Serbia. Missed the whole live broadcast, but will watch later on. Marco, that means a lot to me. Whether you're able to catch this live in the moment or pick it up like so many of you are tonight, picking it up on the replay. I really, really do appreciate it. YouTube appreciates it too. The only thing I can ask, if you are picking us up on the replay, please click that like button. I always forget to ask. I always forget to mention it. It makes a big, big difference. Danny Heaventon is saying, don't start yet. I've to start my copy chat simulator. Peter Lee is saying, just Tom Aquaviti, how was the open day at Springbank? It was brilliant, Peter. It was absolutely fantastic. We had gorgeous weather. It was the exact opposite of last year, actually, where Springbank Day, the open day, was the rainy day, right? But it was brilliant. Danny, it's absolutely fine. You don't need to start a simulator. It's fine for everyone to copy the chat. Remember, if you are going to copy the chat, look out for banana skins. And really, you're only playing against yourself. I think the true 10 out of 10 is for somebody to just go blind and do it on their own, right? I've not managed it. Maybe you will one day. You're actually pronouncing my last name surprisingly correct. Vucic. I'm doing okay with the pronunciations tonight as well. Kjella Kemstra earlier on said that I'm close enough as well. Fantastic. And Peter Lena says, I meant the open day bottles. Okay. Yes, it was fantastic. It's absolutely delicious, Peter. Does that mean that you've not opened yours yet? Come on. Time to get into them, buddy. Time to get them tried. I'm in too good a mood to endure a quiz, says Jerry Miller. I predict you'll stay for the quiz, Jerry. Okay, everyone, good luck. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. If you're disappearing and you don't fancy the quiz tonight, that's okay. Absolutely okay. Thank you for participating, and I look forward to welcoming you back next week. If you are up for the quiz, there's 10 questions here. They're all multiple choice. Like I say, you're only playing against yourself. Starts off easy. It's going to get trickier throughout this evening. Good luck, everyone, as we go into question 1. At this point, I need to admit, if my voice or my speech has sounded a wee bit odd tonight, it's nothing to do with the whiskey. I had a tuna salad at lunchtime today, and I bit my tongue right at the back. It was a really sore one. I was bent over banging the kitchen worktop, tears coming out. It was really painful. And now it's obviously swelling up. I might end up with an ulcer or something, but it's okay just now, but it's in the way, and I feel like it's getting in the way of my speech a bit. But we've got through it tonight. Hopefully you can hear me well enough in order to hear these quiz questions. If not, just give them a wee read. Good luck. Question 1, which of these facts can we associate with Highland Park? I'm going to give you 3 facts, and I want you to pick out what we can associate with Highland Park. A, it's built on land called Rosebank. B, it was once owned by a church minister. Or C, its roots are associated with who was apparently the greatest and most accomplished local smuggler. James Agrena Malt saying, wait, this one was bloody quick. Shortest vPub in years, Aquavitae. Well, we get through it when we get through it. We're not going to make the old 2-year marker still. We're going to bleed over the 2 years. I'm aware only when I looked at the time that it was quick tonight, James. Sorry, will I string out the quiz a wee bit longer? I've got a very, very busy day tomorrow, so I could do with being in bed a wee bit earlier tonight. I hope it doesn't come across like that. I don't want to be short-changing anyone. Tuna is the cat's favourite. Beware the tuna that fights back, says Sugar Kitty. Well, I usually give the cats, I've got 2 cats, of course, Sugar Kitty, right? And I give them a wee bit of the tuna but today's tuna were these little pots that are infused. And I mixed up in a salad, one that was infused with basil and one that was infused with chili and garlic. And I have to say, it was really nice. Some chopped up cherry tomatoes in there, some chopped up onions and things. It was gorgeous. I was really enjoying it right up until I crunched into my own tongue. Okay, what can we associate with Highland Park? Built on Rosebank, owned by a church minister, or owned by an accomplished smuggler? Never shortchanging, says Grain of Malt. Thank you, James. Thank you, buddy. Splitting the crowd a wee bit. B and possibly C. B and C. Lots and lots of people saying B, B, B all over the place. Chili and garlic. Oh, mate, that does fight back. Yeah, it was tasty, though. It was tasty. I can tell you that don't worry about this one. It's a freebie from me tonight. Highland Park, originally Kirkwall Distillery, was built on Rosebank. It was owned by a church minister. What was his name? Boric or something. I can't remember his name now. And its roots were associated with the famous Magnus Mansi Jonsson, one of the greatest and most accomplished smugglers on Orkney and potentially ever. All of these things are Highland Park facts, so everybody gets a point tonight and nobody goes home on a donut. Question 2. Last week we shared some Tormore, which is almost an advance release of what's to come as their core range in 2026. But what was the series called? Do you remember it from last week? As the new Tormores, was it called A, Foundations, B, Blueprint, C, Revival? Foundations, Blueprint, or Revival? Blueprint. Every slip of the tongue tonight I'm going to blame on me biting my tongue. Easy peasy. Everyone, I have trouble remembering this morning. Not fair. B, says Chris. I'm finding it very much the case, Chris, that these days I have to make a deliberate attempt to remember things. I have to consciously do it rather than just naturally remember things. Unfortunately, it's happening when I meet people now as well, which is worrying. I used to be pretty good at that. I'm following Daisy, says Rick Johnson. B. Jeffrey Bangers is saying B for Blueprint. Good to have you, Jerry. Jeffrey. And Danny Edmonton is saying B along with Ted Brooks. Randy Rice, that might be the first time I've mentioned your name, Randy. Nice to welcome you in, buddy. He's saying B. Tom Franey is saying B. And Rob Smith is saying absolutely, definitely B. Doodle Drams bought me a dram to say get yourself a wee tongue-safe soup for lunch tomorrow. Thanks for great geekery tonight. Maybe a C pub on Cloudy versus Clearwort one day. I don't know if I'm able to go that far. How could you do such a thing? But Arnie, I like the way you think. Nice to have you in, and thanks for your dram, buddy. Cheers to you. Last to Michael Holman. I can tell you all remember very, very clearly from last week. It was, of course, Tormore's Blueprint series. They brought out a toasted, an ex-bourbon, and an ex-cream sherry. And I shared with you the bourbon and the toasted last week. Blueprint is the series. Give yourself a point if you said B. Question 3. Which of these Speyside distilleries famously features flat-top stills? Give you 3 distilleries here. Which of these Speyside distilleries features flat-top still? A. Fettercairn. B. Blairathel. C. Cragganmore. C is next to V on a keyboard. Of course, C-pub, vPub. Well spotted, Kyle. Well spotted. Danny Hebington is saying the midgie is open and it's rather splendid. Glad you're enjoying it, buddy. Glad you're enjoying it. Can you taste the port cask? Ooh, no idea, but going with C, says Philip Story. Nice to have you in, Philip. I hope you're keeping well, my friend. Nice to welcome you to the vPub. Rob Too Slow is in. Tobias has been in here from the beginning. It's good to see you still here, buddy. Glenn Anderson is here too. Bob Weiser is here. Lachlan McKenzie is also here. Fantastic. Dave VP is here too. Kyle Taylor still in as well. Very jelly of those with a midgie. Listen, there's much more midgie going out globally than there's ever been. Much bigger release than last year's UK exclusive. Got it all absolutely right. Knowledgeable folk. Fettercairn does have unique stills, but it's not because they've got a flat top. It's because they've got water. Blairathel is not a Speyside distillery, quite regardless of what's happening with their stills. And that meant it was a 50-50 between Fettercairn and C. Cragganmore. So if you said C, you're absolutely spot on. Vast majority of you, I think almost everyone's got a 3 out of 3 so far. Keep it going. 4. I'm going to give you some marketing bump here. I thought this was hilarious at the time. It's been out there for a wee while now, but I need you to fill in the blanks. What distillery are we talking about that would come up with such nonsense? Here we go. I'll try and read this out. As one of the most visionary contemporary creators, Philippe Starck continually pushes boundaries and expectations of creativity. At the crossroads of traditional savoir-faire and avant-garde intelligence, blank X Starck will reinvent what whiskey will represent to a new generation, reimagining the spirit of blank. What is blank? What is this utter? Not sorry to be such a Philistine. I'm sure Philippe Starck is a really talented individual. I'm sure it's amazing what he can create and what he can do. But this contrived nonsense to talk about how the two things are going to come together and reinvent whiskey, reimagining the spirit of a distillery, it's just bunk. Anyway, what is blank? A. Macallan. B. Mortlach. C. Ardbeg. Tom Freeney is saying, what mince? Stinks of Diageo, says Road to Dram. Blank must be bollocks, surely. It's just continually pushes boundaries and expectations of creativity at the crossroads of traditional savoir-faire and avant-garde intelligence. Jesus wept. Somebody was paid to write that. Somebody was paid to write that. Maybe AI was paid to write that. And if they weren't, it will be next time. Oh dear. I know it isn't A or C, so it has to be C, says Dave VP. Good to have you in, Dave. Good to have you playing along. Good deduction here. Billy Abbott saying, I wish it was me. Good money in it. Hey, Billy, nice to have you join us tonight, buddy. There's good money in it until it all goes to AI. Dan is saying ChatGPT and a touch of marketing. I can tell you you're all spot on. Absolutely. It was Mortlach Bunkum. It was the Mortlach X Starck collaboration of last year. Apparently, he's part of the whiskey direction team. I hope he knows about whiskey. Anyway, question 5. I'm going to give you a very close-up picture of a very specific bottle of whiskey. You can clearly see a foil tear strip there and a silver foil capsule with the signature of John Duff on the top. Where are we? Are we looking at A, a bottle of Longmorn? Are we looking at B, a bottle of Benriach? Or are we looking at C, a bottle of the Singleton? Longmorn, Benriach, or the Singleton? What whiskey represents a new generation, overpriced and expensive? Yeah, that's what I had to. I mean, it's just that was what caught me more than anything. Redefining whiskey for a new generation. There is hardly any Mortlach that's come out in recent times. Any of the interesting stuff, the good stuff that we have been able to afford. So I don't know what new generation they're talking about. Some kind of new wealthy generation. Lachlan is saying B. I'm going to go with the subject on the night. Bob Weiser, Billy Abbott. Glenn FC. Klaus is saying B as well. Gabriel Welding. Good to see you, Gabriel. Good to see you, Glenn. Rolfie's still in playing along. He's saying B. Bruce Bernard is saying B. Alistair McPhail is in tonight playing in the quiz. Good to see you, Alistair. Good to see you, Bruce. Both saying B. Crowdsourced answer from everyone saying B. Absolutely right. Couldn't catch you out. John Duff was involved with Longmorn. Obviously, the Singleton, I was hoping I could catch out with the Singleton of Dufton there. But no, you quite spotted that. And in fact, you might have seen that I opened the very bottle in the picture tonight is now burst open. You can see here, if I show you there, this is the photograph I took with John Duff's signature on the top. So there we go. Question 6. Almost everyone got their pass mark already. Is the quiz too easy tonight? Question 6. Are there any Scotch malt distilleries with Duff in the name? If so, how many? A, there is one. B, actually, we have 2 Duff distilleries. C, it turns out there are 3. We're looking for Scotch malt distilleries, whether they have floor maltings or not, and with Duff in the name. How many are there? It's going to get trickier from question 6 onto the ass hat at the end. Andrew Hamaker is in, celebrating a pass mark. Rob Smith is saying never too easy. Always a wee bit nervous, eh, Rob? Hitting the pass mark. The rest is gravy, says Rick Johnson. Fantastic. 5 out of 5, it's a pass, says John Ginger Genius. Jeffrey Bangers, 5 out of 5 as well. Graham Fraser on a 5. Billy Abbott, 3, he's saying, but I think Billy Abbott only came in a wee bit late, maybe. He's saying Ba, C, okay, rather than 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. Milton Duff, plus the beast of Dufton, says Everwind. I can tell you that a lot of you have nailed this. We've got Milton Duff, we've got Dufton, and we've got Macduff. So there we go. There are 3 Duff distilleries. Macduff is actually a Highland. Milton Duff and Dufton are in Speyside. Question 7. Dufton was named after its founder, James Duff. We're on a theme, aren't we? We're on a bit of a roll. Who built the town as a means to employment for men returning from the Napoleonic Wars. Founded in 1817, what did he originally call it? By it, I mean the town he founded. What did he call the town in 1817? James Duff. He called it A, Mortlach, B, Balvenie, or C, Jamestown. I forgot to look up when it actually changed, but it was the 19th century. The name was changed from its original name to Dufton to honour James Duff. But when James Duff named it originally in 1817, what did he call it? He called it A, Mortlach, B, Balvenie, C, Jamestown. Philip Story with a Simpsons quote, can't get enough of that wonderful Duff. The amount of t-shirts and socks and stickers and coasters and mugs that I've had over the years with that wee phrase on it. Fantastic, Philip. Fantastic. Okay, finally we've got one that is splitting the crowd a little bit. Finally, we've got a wee bit of a banana skin. Dufton was eventually named after the founder, but what did the founder call Dufton when he founded the town in 1817? A, Mortlach, B, Balvenie, C, Jamestown. look at this. We've got Ted Brooks and Gabriel Welding saying A, Glenn Anderson saying B, and Philip Story saying C. Lachlan is saying go for C. Bruce Bernard is saying A with a lounge. It's a shame what Duff means to Gen Z. Yeah, that'll disappear. I don't think it's a shame at all. I think it's cool. Kyle Taylor is saying parish name. Oh, banana skin, Kyle, banana skin. Okay, we've got the Mortlach Church just south of Duffton there. And yes, there was a hamlet, a little village built around there, always called Mortlach. But actually, when James Duff founded Duffton in 1817, he originally called it Balvenie, after the castle situated on the north side of the town. Mortlach Church is still there. Balvenie Distillery is, of course, there. It's part of it. It's all in Duffton, but it was originally called Balvenie. So I think that's caught out a couple of folk. Mortlach was around way before 1817. Oh dear. Question 8. I'm looking out. Alistair McPhail's still got his 7. Glenn Anderson's still got, Glenn Anderson still got his 7. Mike Molasses has still got his 7. So there's still a few in the running here. Still a few. Gabriel Welding is saying interesting question, Aquaviti. Thank you, Gabriel. Question 8. Which of these whiskey brands features a leaping fish on its label? So I want you to visualize the branding of a whiskey, and I want you to think about the leaping fish. And then I want you to realize that it's not going to be Speyburn. Graham Fraser's on the 7 for 7, but he's on a lag. He's saying he's on a bit of a lag. Leaping fish, A, Fettercairn, B, Glenelgin, or C, the Singleton. Which of those whiskey brands has got a leaping fish on the label? Philip Story is saying Speyburn. I knew so many of you would just imagine exactly that. Now he's saying bugger too fast. Is this the picture question, says Everwind? No, that was the picture of the Benriach capsule. A bit of a boring picture question this week, I'm afraid, Chris. Everyone is saying B, I guess. Daisy is saying C along with Alberto Steve Atkiss. Good to see Steve. Tom Freeney is also saying C. Marco's saying, I think Talisker has also a fish, but not leaping. Okay, I can tell everyone that Fettercairn has a unicorn. Glenelgin has, I believe, a house martin from memory. And yes, the Singleton has the leaping fish, as does Speyburn, quite rightly pointed out by Rob Smith and quite a few others. Here's a wee picture of it, just to remind you what it looks like. The leaping fish in the circle at the top there. Looks like quite a refreshing drink they've made with an 18-year-old Singleton there. Not sure what that'll be. Question 9, second from last. Which of these lists of 3 whiskey brands share something in common by all featuring birds on the label? I think you can see how I put these questions together tonight. Rather than random questions that are collected from all over the place, I've put this quiz together in order so the questions flow from one to the other, it would seem. But we're back on branding, and I'm going to give you 3 sets of 3 brands. And I need you to find the set of 3 that all feature birds on the label. First set is A, Altmore, Glenelgin, and Ardmore. The next set is B, Longmorn, Glengrant, Glenlivet. And finally C, Arran, Campbellton Loch, and Craigellachie. Chris is saying, everyone is saying, reminds me of the video you did on Islay with the fish jumping out in the background, Roy. That's right. We had a crazy photo bombing or video bombing trout while we're doing one of the interviews. It leapt clean out of the water in the background. Quite a sight to see. Tom Freeney is saying, where's the grouse? That's right. Famous grouse. Would have been a wee bit easy, Tommy. Too Slow is suggesting this could be a banana skin. Rob Smith thinks it could be a banana skin. Philip Story's saying, oh, you bugger, I have no idea. We'll guess. Oh, Graham Fraser is holding it together with an 8, as is Mike. Peter Box as well. Glenn Anderson, all on an 8. Fantastic. Wonder if Alistair McPhail is still on his 8. This is splitting the crowd a little bit, so I just need to tell you that. Firstly, B, Longmorn, Glen Grant and Glenlivet, none of those feature a bird. Arran features a bird. Campbellton Loch features a bird. Craigellachie does not feature a bird. But Altmore, Glen Elgin and Ardmore do. Ardmore has the eagle. Altmore has some kind of bird that looks a bit like a game bird right at the top of the label. And I already mentioned in the last question, I think, or 2 questions ago, that Glen Elgin has what looks like a house martin, maybe a swallow. I think it's a house martin at the top of its label. So if you answered A, that is going to separate. It's going to lose a few of you there. If you answered A for Altmore, Glen Elgin and Ardmore, you get that one right as we roll into the ass hat at the end. Anybody still hanging around on a 9? Anybody going to make it through to the ass hat for a potential 10 out of 10 tonight? Come on. Oh, I've lost Mike. I've lost Mike on that one. It always gets tough at the end, doesn't it? We start to see some attrition. Anyone else? Alistair McPhail is still on a 9 out of 9. Peter Box on a 9 out of 9. Sugar Kitty 9 out of 9. Graham Fraser 9 out of 9. We've got at least 4 in the running. At least 4. Mike is saying that I'm out. I've never seen an Ardmore Legacy, just independent bottles, which recently discovered. Ardmore Legacy is a huge kind of copper-coloured metallic eagle on the front label, Everwind. Is it insulting to be called a house martin? Says Jimmy Legg. Jimmy, you've been quite quiet tonight. Have I just been missing your comments? I hope you're keeping well, buddy. I hope your humour isn't off. Hope you're in good humour and good health. And you too. Okay, we'll roll into the ass hat at the end, buddy. How many Scotch malt distilleries begin with the letter M? I like these questions, don't I? About the same number as A, the amount of mainland distilleries that are located north of Brora. By Brora, I don't mean the town, I mean the distillery Brora. So everything that's north of Brora Distillery, mainland. B, mainland Highland distilleries that are located west of Loch Lomond Distillery. And finally, C, mainland lowland distilleries located south of Glenkinchie. Oh, my humour is off. All right, says Aquaviti, says Jimmy Legg. I'm sorry to hear, buddy. That is not a good shape to be in. Be good to have a wee chat, find out what's going on, buddy. Philip Story is saying that's just evil. You should be ashamed. It is the ass hat at the end, Philip. You know what it's all about, bud. It's meant to be deliberate. It's meant to have a wee bit of kind of knowledge, a wee bit of guesswork, a wee bit of leaning on the crowd, maybe. A wee bit of pure luck. Absolute stab in the dark, says Danny Hibbington, and he's going with C. Throwing a dart at C, says Jeffrey Bangers. As is Steve Atkiss, Andrew Hammaker, Hellswood. Lassie Hjort, oh, it's been good to see you, and Lassie, good to have you here as always. Going for a C. Glenn Anderson saying I'm out. Oh, sorry to hear, Glenn. Desi Vleeland going for C, but Glenn Anderson and Gabriel Welding now suggesting maybe it's B. Jimmy Legg is saying that was supposed to be funny. I think maybe your humour is off. That's me told. It was supposed to be funny. Sorry, Jimmy. It is my humour. It's definitely my humour that's off. Of course it is. All right. I can tell you. I'm going to tell you the numbers here. Look, have I been kind to you or not? Mainland distilleries north of Brora, we have 4. We have North Point and 8 Doors, and we have Old Pulteney and Wolfburn. Mainland Highland distilleries west of Loch Lomond, we have 4. We have Oban, we have Ben Nevis, we have Ardnamurchan, and we have Nicknean. Mainland Lowland south of Glenkinchie, we have 6. Oh, I'm going to be able to name these. We've got Ailsa Bay, we've got Bladnoch, we've got Borders, we've got Moffat, we've got Annandale, and I need one more. And I've forgotten. But regardless, it's 6. So the question is now, is it A, B on 4, or C on 6? I can tell you, for those of you that answered C, it is 6. There are 6 distilleries beginning with M. We've got 2 Macs, Macallan and Macduff. We've got 2 Moes. We've got Mortlach and Moffat. We've got a Manic Moor. And we've got one other. I'm going to struggle to remember that as well. Milton Duff. There you go. Is that 6 distilleries I managed to name there? I think it is. Maybe only 5. Anyway, the answer is 6. How many of you managed your 10 out of 10 this week? Did anybody get there? Come on, Ted Brooks is saying, boo. I'm so sorry, Ted. Kyle Taylor is on an 8 along with Rick Johnson. I thought 5-2. I can tell you what the 6 is. Let's go. I hope it's 6. Macallan, Macduff, Manic Moor, Milton Duff, Moffat, and Mortlach. I think, did I say Mortlach? I think maybe I said Mortlach. I'm not sure. Moffat and Mortlach. There you go. 6 distilleries beginning with M. Alistair McPhail, celebrating a 10 out of 10. At least one of you made it over the very last hurdle. Congratulations, Alistair. Well done. 9 out of 10. I'll take that, says Mike Molasses. Fantastic, buddy. Graham Fraser on a 9 out of 10. Oh, did he slip up? That's that. Maybe caught Graham out tonight. Hellswood is on a 9 out of 10. The high scoring run continues. Jerry Miller is on an 8. You did stay for the quiz, Jerry. Well done, buddy. Too Slow also got an 8 along with Tobias. Sugar Kitty got a 9. 8 out of 10, no bad, says Dave VP. Good to have had you in participating, Dave, on an 8. Fantastic. Billy Abbott got an 8. Philip Story on a 7. Terrific scores. Dan is saying, Moffat, completely forgot about that one. Alistair McPhail, taps off, well done, says Danny Hebbington. Jimmy Legg sent out 10 Aquavitae gift memberships for 10 random barflies to get access to the emoji and things like that. Please consider staying beyond your free gift membership from the generous Jimmy Legg. I'll raise a wee glass to say thank you to Jimmy. Cheers, buddy. Nice to have you, and thanks for all your support and generosity. All the best. But I think we've got one of the very rare situations where a single barfly, live at least, manages a 10 out of 10. So hats off to Alistair McPhail tonight. Well done, buddy, for a 10. Famously, the guy that scored 11 out of 11 when he did it live, right? Brilliant stuff. Great stuff. Cal Taylor saying, congrats to Alistair McPhail. Alistair McPhail, congrats, says Jerry Miller. Thanks for a fab geeky vPub, which absolutely flew by this evening, says Hellswood. Thank you very much, Helen. That's another wee hint that I've maybe cut it a bit short, but no, we're at 2 hours, 22 minutes. It might be the shortest one this year still. Alistair McPhail is saying, Peter Box managed to get a 10 out of 10 as well. No, did I miss Peter? Celebrating with an emoji as well, with a 10 emoji, Peter, and I missed it. Let's raise a wee glass for Peter as well. 10 out of 10, big guy. Well done. Cheers. Tough quiz, says John, but I won't have it any other way. Great vPub. Thank you very much, John. Thanks for participating tonight. Nice to have had you in. Alberto in Italy saying, good night all, and thanks for a great geeky vPub, Roy. Thank you very much, Road to Dram. Hopefully I kept it within the realms of not too geeky. And Lachlan is saying, thanks, Aquavitae, folks. Have a good evening and ta-ta for now. Thank you very much for participating. Hell's the same, time flies when you're having fun, Roy. Helen, I can't wait to see you up here. Hope everything goes well with the move in the pack. And Graham Fraser saying, did you forget Crafty Distillery and Reaver's Distillery, Roy? I think potentially I did. And you know what's going to be fun about this, as I said at the start of the session tonight before you came along, is because there's more and more distilleries moving in this direction. More and more distilleries are going to be insisting on things like floor-malted grain. We're going to see more of it in the future. Maybe not next year or the year after, but in 3 years' time, if I'm still about doing the vPub, if you'll permit me, there's a good chance that I'll be able to bring floor-malted distilleries part 2. Be something to look forward to, I think, for me. Glenn Anderson is saying, Kilchoman local barley is a fave of mine, and he's bought me a generous dram as well to market. Thank you very much, Glenn Anderson. I'll raise a wee glass. I've finished my Kilchoman though, So I'll just raise a glass of this instead, buddy, and say sláinte and cheers to you. Too Slow saying thank you to everyone. And Alison McPhail is saying, great vPub, Roy. Thanks again. Alistair, Sugar Kitty, Ted Brooks, Rob Smith, Ben Demon Hunter, Jerry Miller, Lachlan, Too Slow, Peter Box, Peter Finnegan. I didn't even spot that you were in tonight. Great session, watched live from New Zealand. Thank you very, very much for joining in, Peter. To Danny, to Rolfie, to Alberto, Graham Fraser, Jeffrey Bangers, to everyone, Tobias, to Billy Abbott, everybody that's joined in tonight. Thank you so much for coming along and hanging out. I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. And sometimes I get a wee bit anxious about doing topics that I don't think are broad appeal. They're quite a wee bit nichey, quite a wee bit geeky, a wee bit self-indulgent, things that I want to talk about, whiskies that I want to taste, things that I want to consider. But so many of you are here every week along for part of the fun. I know it's so much about this amazing community. I'm going to raise this wee glass. Look forward to seeing you all back again next week once more. But until then, I'll remind you all that you're very dearly loved and say sláinte mhath to you all. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. Cheers. A dram has just come in from Danny, right at the dying embers, and he said, cheers for another night of whiskey geekery. Here's to that, Danny. Cheers to you, fella. All the best.